Robert Thomas will bring it in over the line. Leave it. Hold it. Shoot it. Score it. Score. What a goal by Robert Thomas. He waited. People backed off. He snaps it in. He's got his 19th of the year and a 3-1 Blues lead. They get it to Broberg. Broberg's in. He shoots. He scores. Off the glove of Montembeau and in. A 4-point game for the Swedish defenseman. That'll do it.
There it is.
Bring out the Zamboni. The Blues have won 7 straight games. 8 in a row on home ice. And a 6-1 victory moves them 10 games over 500 with a record of 38, 28, and 7. And with 83 points, the Blues have moved to within 2 points of Minnesota for that top wild card spot.
I'm done fighting him, man. This team's unbelievable to watch right now. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Every night that I turn on the Blues game, Alex, I just assume, well, this one's going to end in a win. I wonder how it's going to happen this time around.
Blowout. That's how it's going to happen.
That was one of the hottest teams in the NHL, and I'm not talking about the Blues. I'm talking about Montreal. They came in here, dude, and they were the mirror image of you, but on the Eastern Conference side of things. They've gone on this crazy run. They've got a bunch of young talent that they've been waiting for, and finally, they have arrived in a meaningful way. It didn't matter last night. You could have put, like, the heyday version of the Montreal Canadiens. You could have put anybody out there.
They were pretty good.
It didn't matter.
Larry Robinson was plus 100 one season.
Yeah, well, he would have been a -7 last night against this Blues team. The Blues basically stopped playing by the time we got to the third period because it was already over. Montreal had conceded that game. They're like, we'll get them next time, boys. They had no ability to get offensive zone time. There was nothing sustained. I think it was like 5 high-danger chances at 5-on-5 again last night. The Blues give you nothing. They're like a python just suffocating the life out of you on the defensive side of the game. And then on the offensive side, it's a counterattack where good luck. They've got speed coming from every possible angle. Did I mention that they didn't have Pavel Buchnevich or Colton Parayko last night, who are, I mean, at least coming into the season, 2 of their, conservatively speaking, 5 best players on the team? I can't believe what I'm watching right now, Alex. I don't even know what to describe with this anymore.
I know how to describe this, BK, because it is a get that dump button ready MFing wagon. That's what this team is right now. There's no stopping them. There is no stopping. Hit it, T-Bone.
Oh,
I'm not allowed. No, you shut up.
Can I wear the hat?
No, the hat stays over there, and it is not even looked at.
Though.
They're like the freaking Polar Express right now, man. They can't be stopped. This was the wild part for me because I kind of went into this one thinking, all right, you're going to get a good idea because the Blues had 2 games where they weren't their best. They were exhausted. They had played so many hockey games. They get 24 hours off. Let's see what they look like. And they come out and just stomp on the head of Montreal. And I mean, Montreal in the first 10 minutes of that game last night did not have a possession in the offensive zone time that lasted more than 15 seconds. In the first 10 minutes of that game, it was all Blues. I think the period ended 12-3, 15-3. It's the 16th straight game that the Blues have not allowed their opponent to have 8 or more shots in the first period.
Of course.
Jeez.
It's just wild right now. And remember, 3 months ago, we were like, why can't this team start fast in the first period?
I was thinking that last night. I started to cut you off. How did this team not win 3 in a row prior to the Four Nations break?
Now they've won.
This is a different team.
Yeah,
I cannot discuss them as the same team as prior to the Four Nations face-off because there is nothing about this that resembles the squad that we saw for 60% of the year.
No, they're clicking on every cylinder. Last night they roll 4 lines and they don't care who they're matched up against. They have a schedule to where first line you go, second line you go, third line you go, fourth line you go. There was a point in the third period last night that Walker, Toropchenko, and Foxa were matched up against Slavkovsky, Suzuki, and Caulfield. That's their top line. That's the equivalent of what Thomas, Buchnevich, and Neighbors were doing for about 2 weeks. They've been one of the best lines in hockey. Couldn't even get out of their defensive zone. They were saying WTF the moment that those guys were on the ice.
Well played.
There's 4 lines right now from the Blues that can score, hem you in their own zone, and set the opposition up. There's a defensive structure in place that even when you think you've got offensive zone time, you can't get in the slot. You're just going to have to shoot from the outside and hope it gets to the goalie. And then guess what? When it gets to the goalie, good luck, because both have been outstanding in the NHL.
I said this during the Mizzou football season a couple of years ago. I said it during the Mizzou basketball season this past season. There's
Both did
nothing
not go well.
Touche. There's nothing better than watching your team have success when it was completely unexpected. It's the best place to be as a fan.
True.
Because when it's all gravy, when it's all found money, you didn't come into this with expectations. Every game is not a relief. Every game is jubilation, dude. Because you're watching this right now and you're like, I didn't see any of this coming. If the Blues were expected to not only be a playoff team, but be a real contender this year, it would almost be like, oh, thank God they didn't just throw this season away. It'd be a relief after they're winning all of these games. Instead, we had no idea what to expect out of the Blues this year. And that's the best possible place to be as a fan, because now, I don't know how you guys feel watching this every night. It's so much fun to see the style of hockey that they are playing, the joy that they're playing with right now. Like, you can see it with the body language. On one side of the game last night, you saw a team that looked defeated. On the other side of the game, you saw a team that was playing free, just without a care in the world, as if they might make a mistake, but they know that somebody will have their back and they'll make up for it. It's the best version of hockey that you can watch, and the result is 13-2-2 since the Four Nations break, averaging 4 goals per game, best in the NHL, and giving up 2 goals per game, third best in the NHL. You're watching one of the 3 best teams in the league right now. It's unbelievable.
I know people don't like this, and I hope I don't get slack for it, but they're playing as good, if not better, than that 2019 Stanley Cup season. Now, people don't like it because anytime you comp it to a championship, like, oh, no, they're not the same. Yeah, different team, different players, different coach. The way, the style that team played in 2019, the moment Craig Berube really got them bought into their system, is this. They finished every single check when their guys were on the ice. They were built together as a group to where when one thing happened, 5 guys responded. They had elite goaltending. They had elite defensive structure that wouldn't allow the opposition to get any opportunities against them, and they would cycle the puck. 4 lines would make you pay. Winnipeg series, it was the Sundqvist, Barbashev, Steen line that matched up against the top line for the Winnipeg Jets. Again, I know people are like, no, don't comp them to the Stanley Cup championship team. I'm going to start doing it now, because everything I'm seeing from this Blues team is what that team did in terms of confidence and the style that they played.
They have a difference.
What is it?
Jim Montgomery. Oh, wait, no, he was there.
Hey, yeah, you're right.
They have a player that during the regular season, over the last 6 weeks now, is playing like a superstar. Robert Thomas has the most points of any player in the league.
You could have said 4 different players, and I would have been like, yeah, that makes sense.
Robert Thomas. I'm going to go ahead and list you the entire list of guys since the Four Nations face-off break that have more points than Robert Thomas.
All right, go ahead. I'm ready for this list. Brandon, you're supposed to say names.
There's not one, dude.
What?
He's number 1 in the league. 23 points since the Four Nations face-off. That is number 1. Number 2 is William Nylander with 22. There are 3 guys, Sidney Crosby, Jack Eichel, and Nick Suzuki, who had no chance last night against you.
By the way, Thomas shut him down last night.
Those are the guys that are tied for 3rd right now in the league. Philip Broberg is tied for the best plus-minus in the NHL since the Four Nations
Suck on that, Edmonton.
You look at the goal-scoring production that you're getting right now from some of your young players. Like, Zach Bolduc is 10th in the league in goals.
Bolduc has
tied with Leon Draisaitl.
Bolduc has the 3rd most goals among rookie skaters in the National Hockey League right now with 15. The only guys that have more than him are Michkov and Celebrini.
The guys that have more goals: Tavares, Ovechkin, Hurdle, and Wyatt Johnston. It's the entire list since the Four Nation face-off. Like,
yep.
What? Holloway, 8 goals since the Four Nations face-off. That's tied with Brady Tkachuk.
Oh, you don't need him anymore.
Also tied with them with 8.
They
have 3 guys that are in the top 20 in the NHL in goals scored since the Four Nations face-off. And they're all like under the age of 27. It's crazy, dude. What we are watching right now is beyond belief. I don't understand it. I don't want to understand it. I just want to continue to be entertained by it. And so you mentioned the 2019 comp, dude. Sure. I think you could make an argument they're playing better than the 2019 Blues were, because so much of that was built on a goalie that was going through a literally historic run.
Yeah.
This is everybody.
And by the way, this team is allowing, and it's 12 games fewer than what Berube had at completion of the season when he took over in 2019. Now, obviously, the Blues will be close to that number. They've allowed fewer goals than what that team did in the entire season with Craig Berube.
Sure. Say whatever you want to about this team. I'm ready for it. I'm open to it.
I'll just say it. They're a mother bleeping wagon. Choo-choo.
That's a train, but yeah, it's
the same thing. It's a hockey
With Alex
phrase.
Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. If you guys want to get involved in the show, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. To do so, you can always check us out on YouTube at youtube.com/101ESPN-STL. The YouTube chat, we got this from Bill. I love seeing fake BK lose his mind this morning. He's getting passionate. Another one from Gator. Haven't seen this BK this aroused in a really long time. Me either.
Sorry, buddy.
Unique experience for me as well.
Coming up.
Yeah.
Coming up next.
Speaking of
Daniel
aroused.
Descalso. He is now the Cardinals bench coach. He's going to talk to us about his expectations heading into this season. We'll talk to Descalso next here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. We are happy to go out to the Callier and Thompson hotline to be joined by the Cardinals bench coach, former Cardinals infielder as well. He's Daniel Descalso joining us here on the show, and we appreciate him doing so the day before opening day for the St. Louis Cardinals. Daniel, we appreciate the time as always, man. How excited are you to get this thing kicked off tomorrow?
Yeah, I think this is a time of year we're all building towards. Everyone's looking forward to opening day. We're finally out of spring training. got to work out of the ballpark today, so it should be energy should be good, and we're looking forward to tomorrow.
All right, Daniel. I know that this was a long spring for you guys, as it is every year, but you did have some young guys that performed pretty well, especially a guy like Victor Scott, who hit his way onto the team. Tell us a little bit about what you saw from Victor Scott this spring and how he earned his spot with this roster on opening day.
Yeah, I'm going to rewind back to last spring real quick. Victor kind of, had a great spring and really opened some eyes, made the team because, Dylan Carlson got hurt and then obviously had some struggles last year. But this was a guy that took some suggestions that we made during the offseason and honestly really ran with it. He sought out a lot of information and came back to camp and had an equally as impressive camp as he did last year, this year, but in a few different ways. He was impacting the baseball with a little more authority, and so we're really looking forward to what Victor is going to do this year.
I'm sure you guys give young players stuff to work on every offseason, Daniel. How rare is it that a guy is able to take what you had for them and implement it into their game and make those changes, and then they see the results the way that Victor Scott did? How rare is what we saw this offseason and this spring from Victor Scott?
Well, I think as a young player, you're filtering out like all the information. There's so much information coming at you. You have to do a good job of evaluating, what's going to be good for you as an individual, and that comes with experience and being a good self-evaluator. So he sought out a lot of information on his own. Obviously, he had some adjustments to make, and he went out there and give him credit. He worked hard this offseason, and it's nice when you see guys work on stuff and it shows up when they get back to Florida.
Daniel, with Victor Scott, he's one of 5 position players to start with this opening day roster that are 25 or younger. What's that feeling like with this clubhouse when you've got a lot of younger guys that are getting this runway to be in the starting lineup for the Cardinals?
Yeah, I think it's great. It's a different spot than we've been in the past. But if you take a look at some of these guys that are young in age, they do have a little bit of experience at the big league level. So it's not like we're just turning roster spots over to AAA players. These guys have been in the big leagues for 1-2 years, and we're really excited for them to take that next step.
Daniel, I did want to ask you something related to Victor Scott making this roster, which is what it means for your lineup day to day. I know Ollie has discussions with you guys, and he wants honest feedback on how you guys are going about things. What does this mean? And now that, Nolan Gorman, for example, it appears at least, will be on the outside looking in for the opening day lineup, how will you guys go about making sure that everybody gets the at-bats that they were promised or that you were hoping to get them going into the season before Victor Scott earned this spot? How do you guys juggle all of that now?
Well, look, a lot was said in the offseason. Some things were maybe going to happen, and then they didn't happen, and that's the reality of where we are right now. I'm not sure if any number of at-bats were promised to guys per se. I mean, but it was going to be our job as a staff to get creative and get guys at bat so they can stay sharp and put them in spots to succeed. And so whether that's going to be making sure we get guys a day off here and there just to make sure other guys are sharp, it's going to be a little juggling act, but it's something that we're gonna have to do.
Daniel, you had that in your career where consistently, you might be in the lineup one day, out of the lineup, and you have to find a way to stay ready at the plate. What's the element of difficulty for players like that this season that might not be in there consistently, but still have to figure out how to be consistent when they step to the plate?
Yeah, I think it's just, lean on your routine, really work on some things in the cage and in your pregame work where you might not be able to have, 7 days in a row where you're going out there getting at bats. So you really have to make the most of those opportunities. You have to be dialed in with your game plan and your approach, and just realize like we're doing this for the good of the club and to try to maximize the roster that we have.
Cardinals bench coach and former Cardinals infielder Daniel Descalso joining us here on 101 ESPN. He'll be a part of the opening day festivities, of course, tomorrow as the Cardinals break camp and head to St. Louis for the home opener. Daniel, when you look at this club and the way that it's put together, I think it is a little different. Mo's talked about this publicly. People aren't hiding from it. It's different in terms of the expectations from the outside looking in than it has been at times in the past. And a lot of that is the offseason messaging, as you mentioned earlier. For you guys as a coaching staff, how are you approaching this season, whether that's differently or the same? How do you approach this season compared to previous years?
Yeah, I think we are, our goal is still to win. If you look at our record from last year, 83 wins, you win one more game a month, maybe two more games in 1 month, we're a 90-win team. And that was with the team that we didn't hit very well last year. We were not a very good offensive team. So, I think for us, we have a lot of younger players that are still learning. So more than ever, you're coaching at the big league level. So now we have to just keep reiterating things to these guys, keep reinforcing the style of play that we want to have. And, we were a very good, aggressive base running team last year in terms of taking extra bases and putting pressure on the defense. We'd like to continue to do that, shore up a couple things. But, you take it one series at a time, 1 month at a time, and who knows, if we get off to a good start, have a good month, guys buy in, start feeling confident and comfortable, you never know what can happen.
Daniel, two of those young guys that I know Cardinals fans are really excited about this year is Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman. Obviously, a tough year last year for both of those players with the ups and downs of the season. Did you see a lot of changes with their approach to the day-to-day from the offseason to spring training this year?
Yeah, I think just by looking at them in the batter's box, both have made a couple of physical adjustments in the box, working with Brant Brown, new hitting coach, who's been great so far. I know he sought both of them out in the offseason. But, you work on things in the offseason, you get to spring training, and inevitably, you start tweaking things here and there, and then the old adage is, don't get fooled by spring training, whether a guy had a good spring or a bad spring. Nothing really matters until the lights come on opening day. So we're excited to see what those guys do, and it's going to be our job to try to get the most out of them.
All right, Daniel, I know sometimes I'll ask this question and a coach will name every player on the roster. So I'm going to ask for at least one or two. That's it. Try to hold it to that if you can. Who was a guy that came into spring and opened your eyes with whether it was the work that he put in the offseason or some of the results that you saw from him going into this spring? Who was a guy that opened your eyes compared to expectations going in?
I think that's an easy one. I think that's Victor. Victor went into the offseason with a plan, and he worked really hard on the offensive side and on the defensive side as well. And so when you see a guy come in as focused as he did, and you see the results for him, you're just encouraged, and it's nice for him to see that hard work is translating. And now the bigger task is to translate it to the regular season. So definitely Victor.
I know, Daniel, the day-to-day is very important now with the season beginning. But for you, do you get a little excited in terms of what the future might look like? I know J.J. Weatherholt was a big topic of discussion throughout camp. Now you're talking about Victor Scott. It seems like there's a lot younger players in the organization that are starting to get people talking.
Yeah, JJ was. It was fun to see him in person. I hadn't seen him play at all until camp. He has a great work ethic, a really good idea of what he's trying to do out there in the box, and it was fun to get a look at him. And yeah, we have some really good young talented players. But it's time to go out and turn the lights on, go out and execute, and I really hope that they can play to their potential this year.
All right, Daniel, final question that I've got for you is we're talking to Daniel Descalso, Cardinals bench coach here on 101 ESPN. I did want to ask you a little bit about the managing side of things. I asked this of Ollie Marmol at winter warmup, but I want to get your perspective now that you've gotten through the spring. If you get into certain situations where, like late innings, right? And you have Jordan Walker out in right field, just to use him as an example, could be somebody else though on any given day. And you have Michael Ciani, who now is a fourth outfielder for you guys. Is that a spot where you potentially, if you're up by a run, you try to use the defensive replacement despite the potential at-bats that you would lose for a young player that is out there? Or in a late situation, left on left with one of your young players, and you've got a right-handed bat with Luke and Baker, for example, coming off of the bench, but you also need to find information on those young players that are left-handed. How do you guys handle the here and now of trying to do what's best potentially in this spot to win the game, with also having the understanding of what this runway could look like for those young players? How do you juggle that as a coaching staff this year?
Yeah, so I'll address the first part first, the defensive replacement side. Usually in that situation, you try to, if you're going to get a guy out of the game for defense, you try to wait till maybe the seventh inning where he might have just hit in that inning and we're up by one or two, and if we keep the lead, he's not going to get another at bat. And Michael Ciani was a top 2 or 3, maybe if not the best center fielder in baseball last year. So you would be foolish not to put him out there and try to play for that victory. In terms of the matchups with the pinch hitters and Baker being a right-handed bat off the bench, I think that's something that we're going to have to read as the season goes on. These guys are going to get some opportunities, but at the end of the day, it's a go out and perform business. It's not a try hard business. So we're going to try to put guys in places to succeed, and hopefully that leads to wins.
Daniel Descalso is the Cardinals bench coach. Daniel, I wanted to make sure I mentioned BT is in here today. He's doing his onboarding process, which could take a while, but he's in here doing his onboarding. He wanted to make sure we told you hello today and that he's looking forward to seeing you out there at the ballpark tomorrow. Thanks for hopping on with us, man.
All right, sounds good, guys. Thanks for having me.
You got it. That's Daniel Descalso. Appreciate his time as always. Cardinals bench coach. He's got a very busy schedule over the next 24 hours or so. So appreciate him carving out a little bit of time for us here on the show today. I really wanted to make sure I asked that last question, Alex, because I think to me it's one of the things that is most difficult, whether it's the managing of the lineup every day, who is getting the bulk of the at-bats. That's part of it. But also you get into certain situations that call, if you're a manager trying to win every game, for a specific remedy, right? If you got a lefty, you got Gorman up, for example. He's in the lineup that day. And he's coming up and they bring in a lefty reliever. And you're down by a run, you got a runner on second. The best way to win that game is probably to take Gorman out of the game and to put one of the right-handed bats that are on your bench into the game. Just, it works splits-wise, right? And yet, for this team, they're trying to get information on the young players. So what's best for you long term might actually be finding out, how does this guy perform in this situation? And so that to me is going to be one of the most fascinating subplots of the season, is how do you manage this as a coach when you're being pulled in two different directions of trying to win for today and also trying to decipher what is best for us, not just in 2025, but in 26 and 27 and 28. Ollie's got a difficult job, and Descalso is going to be part of those conversations as well.
Yeah, well, and I like the answer, and I as the season goes on, I think people are going to get frustrated, and it just feels like it's going to happen this year because you want answers, and the Cardinals are, at least in the first month and a half of the season, they're going to want to win the baseball game, and if that's the case, you're going to see a lot of those guys coming out, specifically the Jordan Walkers, the Nolan Gormans, the guys that you want to see in the lineup, but I get it in the first month of the season. At some point, though, you hope that it evens itself out. And if they fall out of it, then the focus is more on give them a longer leash.
Yeah, I'll be interested the way they do that, because those situations that you did bring up, typically about a month is where you'll see teams balance that, where it is, okay, we will. And that's what he was saying with the it's not a try-hard business, it's a results business.
I like that answer.
I like that from him, because typically about a month is when you'll have an idea, is Newport going to hit left-handed pitching this year or not? Which, like, 2 years ago, he did pretty well against, and then last year he fell off of a cliff and didn't. In a month into the season, you're going to have those answers, and I think that's when they'll be able to pick out a better path for, like, Luke and Baker, for example, of, okay, where are the spots to where we use him? And I think that's what the first month of the season is about, is they keep mentioning runway. They keep trying to really sell you on that, more so on, like, the Libertor, for example, but they're trying to sell that message. I think what they're trying to sell is, hey, we're going to go a month, and then when we kind of get our feet wet and know what guys are, then we can really plot things out a little bit differently. And I think that's what my expectation is, at least as to what they're going to do. Do you have anything clipped up right now of Daniel Descalso, some of his answers that we have? Yes. Okay. The reason why I ask is because we got about 12 different texts on this, Alex. Can you just give us a snippet of just anything? Any of his answers, just give us like 10 seconds of it real quick. Oh, yeah.
Just by looking at them in the batter's box, both have made a couple of physical adjustments in the box, working with Brad Brown,
I know who it is.
New hitting coach who's been great so far.
Okay, that's good. Is that Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah,
or is that
just like him.
Until the text line brought that up, I was like, man, that actually does sound like Mahomes.
I'm just going to pose this now in football season. We're just going to say we're going to get Patrick Mahomes on, and we need to like give Daniel a little money under the table. Be like, hey, just talk football with us.
Yeah.
We could make some good money off of
Oh,
that.
my gosh. Yeah. He should be doing
a weekly interview with limited fake Patrick Mahomes.
He should be doing cameo, but like just hold a picture up of Patrick Mahomes and do the cameo.
That'd be amazing. We could do it on our YouTube stream where he's got like we somehow work out AI and he's got like something that is an overlay from his face that looks like Patrick Mahomes. Oh my gosh. It could work. I think. How many times do you think he's been told that in his life? Oh, gotta be dozens. We can ask him next time we see him out at the ballpark, but it's gotta be dozens, right? Yeah.
I would think so. But you know what's funny is, like, I don't know if I've ever picked up on that until just now.
I don't know how
we've had him on the show a couple of times.
I think I have, but I've never been like he sounds like somebody. I guess I've just never really put two and two together.
Yeah, it's definitely Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah,
that is the comparison. All right, he's Alex. Let's T-Bone on BK. Coming up next, Burley and Donnie understood the assignment last night. And what is the great unknown for the Cardinals in 2025? We'll get into it here on BK and Ferrario.
Taylor Hendricks Day Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Last night, the Blues beat up on the Montreal Canadiens as they took them down 6-1. They are off today as they travel to Nashville, where they'll take on the Predators tomorrow night. And we'll have pregame coverage starting tomorrow at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario. Then puck drop at 7 o'clock with the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber. And Cardinals opening day tomorrow when they host the Minnesota Twins. Sonny Gray on the mound for St. Louis. Pablo Lopez gets the start for Minnesota. 3:15 will be first pitch. The Sports Update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at Londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Three 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. Can I read you just a quick interaction that we just had on the text line? Just real quick.
Are you going to do the voice with it, though?
No, not even worth it.
Okay, I'll do it then.
All right, this is a typical interaction at times on our text line. Please fire BK, the dude is trash. So what did I do? Said, the only take is Patrick Mahomes, you're a clown. Said, thanks for listening. That was it. No more response. Like, I gotta see how this is gonna go. He said, I'm bleeping with you, you're good. Why is that the interaction and the way that this goes in our world in 2025? I don't understand it, but whatever. We're having a good time here today. The Blues are on a 27-game winning streak. Cardinals back in action tomorrow. And Burley and Donnie were in attendance last night for the game at the arena. Alex, you said there was an assignment, and they understood what was at hand.
Yep, they put them up on the Jumbotron there, and they showed both of them. And Burley and Brendan Donovan were both holding Budweisers, and the applause, everyone was starting to get excited. The Cardinals opening day music is playing, and then both just tilted the Budweisers back and just chug, 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 chug. Burley finished it off in like 2 seconds, smashed the can in his hand.
Did he?
Oh, yeah, he knew how to get
Foley and Mo loved that.
I was wondering, that was part of me, and I was going to tweet it out, but I'm like, no, let's not stir the pot. But I'm like, I wonder the day before opening day, they're cool with this.
The slamming the beer, totally cool. The crushing it in your hand?
I think it was just like Burley was
Burley's
strong.
a DH, okay?
Yeah.
It's fine.
I was also waiting for Burley to just like, on the forehead, but they understood the assignment. The crowd went wild with that one. Burley and Donovan, hockey guys, so they're good in my books.
Out of curiosity, who do you think are the most likable players on this team? Because I think Burley's got to be up there. Am I wrong on that? If I played my hand and I said, Alec Burleson, most likable player on the team, would you have somebody else that you say, I see your king ace and I raise you double seven, sir?
I think I would raise you Mason Wynn.
That's who I was going to name.
Yeah,
too.
but it would be a really close. Like, you've got king ace and I've got king ace, but I've got the suits for the flush.
I think Pajes is up there too. Pajes was very likable at Winter Warm-Up.
Who's good on Katie Woo's podcast as well.
I think Pajes is a little higher than you'd expect.
You guys are bleeping with me, right?
No, I know. I'm dead serious.
He's very likable. Now,
likable versus fans.
So that's the thing. I think there's almost two separate parts that have to go into this. I guess I should have been disrespectful. One, like overall likability scale. I think there's a personality side, and Pie's really high on that. And there's also a what does your play look like? How, do people enjoy watching you?
We
all
know
on the
he's
field
great
as well?
behind home plate.
I think Burleson's up there in that regard. I think Mason Wynn is definitely up there as well. I think this team, if they can win, has a lot of players that are pretty likable. Jordan Walker, pretty likable guy.
Yeah.
Victor Scott, very likable as well. I personally find Brendan Donovan to be extremely likable and very easy to root for. Newbar, if he can stay healthy, super likable as well. Wilson Contreras, who we haven't even mentioned, super likable guy. Plays with fire, plays with a little bit of an edge that I think speaks to this fan base especially. I think they have a lot of position players that are likable. It's just they got to do the winning. That's a prerequisite to get there. All right, last thing on this, and then I do want to talk a little bit about the biggest unknown for the Cardinals heading into 2025. You mentioned that he was drinking a Budweiser.
Mm-hmm. King of beers.
What do you refer Budweiser to? Like, if you're saying I'm going to drink a Budweiser, I'm going to drink a blank.
Budweiser.
Okay.
Yeah, Budweiser, the red one.
I
called it Bud Heavy before the show, and I might as well have called it like.
I've never heard it called Bud Heavy.
Me neither.
That's crazy to me.
I've never heard it called Bud Heavy. I put
out a poll.
I got Budweiser. You got Bud Select. You've got Bud Light.
Bud Light.
Bud Light. Yeah, I've never heard it called Bud Heavy.
Interesting. I guess you could call it the king of beers. You could call it Bud Diesel.
I mean, but I guess I'm
just
the
a Bud.
I'm the weird one because
Budweiser.
I call something like what its name is. So like
Sure.
the can says Budweiser. Like when I go to McDonald's and get myself a nice Filet-O-Fish, my wife makes fun of me all the time. She's like, "Why don't you just say fish sandwich?" I'm like, "Because it's called a Filet-O-Fish."
Yeah,
So
I
what
can
do you
agree with
call like a soda? Like, do you call a soda by like its actual name?
I say I would need a Sprite. I
want
need a
a
Coke.
Coke.
I need
Okay.
I call it by its name.
Well,
I
some
mean,
people,
he's right.
No, some people like say like,
People
what do you
call
call
it
soda?
pop,
They call it pop,
soda.
I call it
Yeah.
soda. Some people call it Coke.
Like if you go to a restaurant and they ask you what you would like to drink, you say I would like a soda.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then
no,
they
no,
ask a
no, no,
follow-up
no,
question
no,
of which soda.
People have done
Yeah,
that. When I
I'm
used to
sorry.
wait tables, it was I need a pop. And
I
I'm like,
framed
cool,
that
what
question
flavor?
wrong. I framed that question wrong. I was just curious, what does he call soda? Like, is it pop? Is it Coke? Does he call it Coke? Dr. Pepper? Like, is he calling by their specific names? Why you're looking at me
I'm
like
not
the whole
totally
Bud Heavy
understanding
thing?
this. I don't know if it's a one-for-one. That's like
I'm
beer.
glad we're on the same page, Ferrario.
I'm glad you guys were as well.
I just remember when I used to wait tables at a restaurant, people would be like, "I'll take a soda pop," and I'm like, "Cool. What flavor do you want for
All
your
right,
soda
our
pop?"
text
You
line's
want me to
blowing up.
surprise you?
First time I've ever agreed with BK, 110%. It's a Bud Heavy. We got a lot of those. First time I've agreed with BK.
I have never referred to it as Bud Heavy. I've called it the king of beers. I've called it Budweiser. I have never called it Bud Heavy.
All right, I'm just making sure that I wasn't like,
Man.
I didn't know if it was something specific to me or my friend group. I didn't think so. I put out a poll on this on Twitter at BK Sports Talk.
Of course you did.
So far, 50% of them say it is a Bud Heavy.
And I also
40% say it's Budweiser, which is the name of the beer. So I think this is pretty common.
I've also never heard. I've also never heard it called Bud Diesel. And you
Me
put that
neither.
on your poll, and there's people saying it's called Bud Diesel. Never heard that before.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things that you can call it. All right, the biggest question for the Cardinals heading into 2025, the greatest unknown. Over on MLB.com, they had a question of the great unknown for every team going into 2025. For the Cardinals, they said, can Sonny Gray be an ace in 2025? For you, Alex, if you had to answer that, if they came with that prompt to you, what do you believe is the greatest unknown for the Cardinals in 2025?
How was Burley's hand after he crushed that beer?
That's a good one.
No, mine is, do they have a second impact middle of the order bat? I think one is obvious in Wilson Contreras. Do they have another one? Do they have another impact bat that we weren't expecting? Because I'm not going to put Arenado in this because who knows what happens. Going to have somebody else. That's my biggest unknown, because if they can find that, that's how you set yourself up for success in years following. It's like the Blues. They found a guy who can be a top two line player. Can the Cardinals find another impact bat?
My question, it kind of ties into that. My question is, are they going to hit for power? Are they going to slug at all? Because they were not a great slugging team last year. They ended up finishing on the season 19th in the big leagues with a .392 slugging percentage, which is not good. And on top of that, who is replacing, and I know he didn't play well last year, but who's replacing the Goldschmidt power? And if Gorman's not in lineup, who's replacing his power? Like that's a big question mark for them. So my question, my biggest concern is, I'm a big modern baseball guy. You got to strike guys out, which I'm okay if they're not doing that this year. They're in a transition with their pitching and moving forward. But the other thing is you've got to slug. And I just don't know if they're going to do this. The way that they've talked about their lineup construction so far, it feels very much of, hey, we're going to be a first to third team. And I just don't know if you can be successful at the big leagues like that.
And my question for them, the great unknown to me, can you operate the way they are with their roster and get all of the answers that you need by the end of the season? It's almost more of a 10,000-foot view of the team, but it's basically the question that I asked Daniel Descalso moments ago. You have so many players that you need answers on, and there's only more coming. It's not going to get easier. It's going to get harder throughout the course of the season, barring injury, of course. Can you get the answers that you need? Can you find out what Gorman is this way? Can you have everyday playing time for the guys that need it while you have this many options available to you? And maybe every bit as important, can those guys succeed while going about it this way? Or is it too much for them, right or wrong, when they're potentially going in and out of the lineup on a day-to-day basis? And does that stunt their growth as well? So mine is more of a 10,000-foot view on the team. Can they get the answers they need while operating the way that they are?
Yeah, the crazy part about that is I don't know if that's a question for the coaching staff. I think that's a question for the front office.
Totally agree.
Because they're going to be the ones that, like, they can't decide, despite what people believe of Mo putting the lineup together, they can't decide who's playing and who's not playing. They have to decide on how many at-bats they're going to see. is that the player that we move on from, or do we keep him in our core moving forward?
I've never seen our text line blow up the way that it has with the butt heavy discussion.
And
There's a couple people coming through that are saying you could call it Bud Heavy or just plain Bud.
And we got this from STL fan Indiana. Never heard it called Bud Heavy, but I like it, and I'm going to be calling it that from now on.
no, don't do that.
Yeah, it's because I guess there's a Bud Light, but again, it's
Bud Light, Bud Heavy.
cool, man.
Two things I didn't
So
have.
do you call it Coke Light and Coke Heavy?
I just call it a Coke.
The
Because it's called Coke on the can,
or a
right?
diet.
Because it's called that on the can.
Yeah.
Which is why I call it Budweiser.
It is interesting. I'm not sure what else fits into this criteria.
That's the same
where it's
thing,
like
though,
there's
right?
a legit. What are the other things in our culinary experiences that have? And Bud Heavy, by the way, a great culinary experience.
Yeah, what a culinary experience.
What else goes by a nickname? Like, I guess McNuggets. That would be the closest thing maybe to it, but that's a little different.
It's not really a nickname, though. Isn't that what they're
It's
called?
what they're called.
Yeah.
But I think for a lot of people, everything is a McNugget, right? If it's a chicken nugget, it's a McNugget now in your life.
Is that
like
true?
Kleenex. Kleenex has taken. It's a brand. Kleenex is a brand.
Right.
It is tissue paper.
But
everybody calls it all Kleenex.
So you go to another restaurant and you say, I'd like some McNuggets. Because that's a McDonald's thing.
personally,
and
but
then you
I
do
would
like
imagine
the
that
sound
people-
effect. Ba-da-da-da-da.
Because like you don't go order a burger somewhere else and say I'm going to get a Big Mac. Like no, that's a McDonald's thing.
Right, but that's
I've
the
never heard
specific
somebody
name.
refer-
Bud Heavy is a nickname.
I
I
just
don't
picture
know.
me getting like, what? I want the Dino Nuggets. We don't have those. Oh,
No,
that's
that's the
okay.
yeah.
You know what I
Somebody
meant.
said, hey, Andrew Marsh coming in. It's a Bush Latte. Bush Light is a Bush Latte.
So people
see?
just come up with whatever nickname they want for it.
You've never heard that?
No.
No,
What
I've
you're
never heard
telling
that
me-
one either.
What you're telling me is I'm actually correct. It's called Budweiser. People just come up with
Text line
nicknames.
says Coors is the banquet beer. Great point, sir or madam.
Isn't that their
Great
slogan?
point. Yes.
Coors
Okay,
is
well, that's different.
Coors is my golf beer or Mick Ultra.
Yeah.
Man,
Those are
there-
my golf beers.
The two things I didn't have on my bingo card today was the text line blowing up over Bud Heavy, and then BK pausing our show meeting so he could put out that freaking poll.
Oh yeah, BK in the middle of it. We're talking about segments and be like, hold on a minute.
Gotta tweet out.
Gotta
my
make
poll.
sure people, and then he goes, cool, we're ready to go now. I'm like, oh, cool, are we? Now I know you call every chicken nugget McNuggets, so that's good to know.
Somebody said, bleep, yeah, about time we got to the culinary experiences. Screw politics. I don't know what
Now
the
a
context
culinary
is for that.
podcast. Let's go. BK drives through Chick-fil-A and he's like, yeah, I'd like 16 McNuggets, please. We're like, Chick-fil-A, what are you talking about?
And they would say it's my pleasure. Coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Questions and answers here on BK and Ferrario. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. If you guys have any questions, we'll get to them right now here on BK and Ferrario. All right, this one comes from the 314. Alex, question for you. If Dylan Holloway is not our team MVP this year, who is?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I don't know if I have one in my mind.
Can I give you like a off the path answer?
Before you do that, can I respond directly to the question? And the reason why, like, the premise of it, I think Holloway is the team MVP. So if we're operating off of that, then we can have the discussion. But I actually do believe that Dylan Holloway is your MVP on the team this year. I think he's unlocked Jordan Kyrou, which is like the most important thing that happened for the Blues this year.
I think prior to the injury, it was Colton Parayko.
That's fair.
And I guess I'm not going to change my answer considering he's been hurt for a couple of weeks and they've still found ways to win. But when they were bad, they kept their head above water because of Colton Parayko, and then he changed the game. So I would say Colton Parayko, but I would put I think I don't know if I can have one. Holloway would be in my top three. Parayko, Thomas, and Holloway would be my top three.
So I'm going to go just a little bit off here, and hopefully everybody follows me
Jim
here.
Montgomery?
No,
Bannister?
Bannister, I mean, he made this exciting by having him be so bad to begin the year. But I would say Fowler. And the reason I say that is kind of to your point of like Holloway unlocking Kyrou. Fowler was brought in. It helped unlock Colton Parayko. And Fowler's been one of your best offensive producing defensemen, and it has helped really stabilize things since Parayko's been hurt, too.
One of the best moves that any team made this year via trade, by the way.
I personally believe...
Wasn't at the deadline, but it counts the same.
That was the deadline move. They just did it in December. I personally believe if they make the playoffs, Jim Montgomery is going to get votes for the Jack Adams Award, and Doug Armstrong is going to get votes for GM of the Year award.
You have a better grasp on this than I do, Alex, because you're more in tune nationally with this stuff. Doug Armstrong has to be up there.
Has to be.
As the executive of the year, right?
Has to be.
I'm guessing the Capitals will get
Capitals is going to probably get it, and they're going to get the Coach of the Year award, which I don't blame them. They should get that.
Blues should probably be second, though.
Yeah, I could see the Blues.
Doug Armstrong.
Dallas Stars probably should be up there for what they did in terms of got Mikko Rantanen.
But they were already a great team, and then they added a guy at the deadline. I'm not going to give you the executive of the year for pulling off of a trade.
Ottawa might be another one. Ottawa got Linus Ullmark in the offseason.
It's a good one.
Ottawa got, they traded away Jacob Chychrun, but they did bring in a couple of decent picks.
Blues have
players
more
for
points
that.
than Ottawa.
Yeah. I mean, you're preaching to the choir right now. For what Doug Armstrong did and why he deserves, again, he's not going to win it, but I think he's top three. He deserves it because he did an unconventional offseason. Nobody else is willing to do offer sheets, and Doug Armstrong said, I'm not going to do one, I'm going to do two. And he jumped the ship in terms of the trade deadline and didn't wait and went out there and got Cam Fowler, made his moves. So, yeah, I would say he, along with Jim Montgomery, are going to get votes for that, and then the rest we'll find out.
And that's why I'm okay with it going to the Capitals GM, because they overhauled their roster this past offseason, and they took a huge leap of faith by going out and taking on a player that was considered to be a salary dump that most teams across the league wouldn't have touched.
He's one of their best plus-minus guys.
Yeah, we'll take Pierre-Luc Dubois. That's fine. We'll take him on. We think he's going to be great in our system, and he has been. He's a plus 34 this year for them, dude. Plus 34. That's absurd. So I totally understand. Beyond that, though, I think I would have a hard time understanding why you would have anybody else above Doug Armstrong for what they were able to do in the offseason. Some teams made a change here, a tweak here or there. The Blues completely changed their defensive core between the end of last season and where we are today. And they went out and made one of the most aggressive moves that no other team would have or could have done, which was the offer sheets. All right. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 636. Alex, do you think that any Blues players are in award consideration at this point? And if so, who?
Winning it, no. I think there will be votes for Zach Bolduc for Rookie of the Year. He's got the third most goals of any rookie in the NHL right now, and he's been the best rookie since the Four Nations break. I think Robert Thomas is probably going to get a couple of Selke votes. He's not going to be in the top three, top five because of the injury, but he's going to finish the season as a point-per-game player. He's going to finish the season with one of the best face-off numbers in the NHL. His plus-minus is going to be in the plus 10s. So I think he'll get that. Other than that, Parayko's injury is going to take him out of that Norris Trophy conversation. Even if he wasn't going to win it, he was going to get some votes. And then you're not in the Hart Trophy or the Rocket Richard. So I would say it's the rookie and the Selke.
Thomas was the one that immediately came to mind for me. And I think Parayko, had he not had this injury, maybe not actually winning. I don't think you'll have anybody that is going to win an award this year. Probably not even top 3 necessarily. But if you're looking for a guy that could have been in consideration, maybe they received a vote or something like that.
Yeah.
I think you could have seen Parayko potentially.
I also wonder, and I brought this up, this was one of my Ferrario 5s at the beginning of the season. I wonder, depending on how the rest of the season goes and where the Blues finish in terms of goals allowed, I wonder if they get consideration for the Jennings Trophy in terms of tandem.
I don't think so. Numbers
right now, they're 12th in terms of goals allowed per game in terms of fewest. And they're probably one of the few teams that have used both goaltenders all season.
Yeah, I mean, we know how this works. They're not one of the best teams. If you look at just save percentage, stuff like that, they're not going to compare favorably.
Once again, Washington's going to probably win that one with Thompson and Chucky Sideburns.
Yeah, I think that's probably the way that this ends up going. All right, he's Alex. That's T-Bone on BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Coming up in 15 minutes, we continue our countdown of the 20 most important Cardinals for the 2025 season with number 3 on our list. I think we might want this one back, and we'll discuss why coming up at 12:15. But next, the Blues peers are some of the best teams of the last decade. What does it mean for them, not just for the here and now, but for the next couple of seasons? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario back with you to talk about my friends out at Rhino Shield. When it comes to the exterior of your home, your business, this is the company to use. And speaking to business owners right now, if you've got your business, the exterior's looking old, worn down, the paint's chipping off, that's not the look you want for your customers when they come by or when they see your business, when they drive by on the side of the road. No, you want it looking brand new. To make that curb appeal, force them to give your business a call. And this is where Rhino Shield comes into play. So many people have used Rhino Shield. Chesterfield Amphitheater has done this. There's a business complex right next to my house in High Ridge that Rhino Shield, Darren and his team, changed from looking 35 years old to looking brand new. That's what they do over at Rhino Shield. It's a ceramic coating process that sticks 8 to 10 times thicker than any paint that you're going to buy. It blocks UV rays, so you're saving money on energy bills. It also is waterproof, so you don't have to worry about all of that water damage coming to it over the years. It's backed by a 25-year transferable warranty, so you know it's going to last. So your business, your home, call Rhino Shield to get that brand new look. 877-25-RHINO, 877-25RHINO.com.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. So I saw Matthew DeFranks tweet this out yesterday, Alex. Teams in the last decade that were at least plus 24 in any 7-game stretch, which is what the Blues have done in their last 7 games.
Plus minus doesn't matter.
Outscored their opponents by 24 goals in a 7-game stretch. All right, so I would imagine there aren't many teams that have done this. That is correct. The 2024 Vancouver Canucks, so last year's Canucks that everybody was shocked by. They came out of nowhere, right? They ended up winning their division, and unfortunately it's collapsed this year. But
that's all right. They just had the soap operas taking place in the locker room.
Yeah, they did this. The 2022 Florida Panthers.
Ooh.
That was the President's Trophy team the year prior to trading for Matthew Tkachuk.
Mm-hmm.
They lost in the second round. They went to the Stanley Cup the following year and then won the Stanley Cup the year after that. The 2021 Colorado Avalanche did this. They lost in the second round that year. The next year, they played your Blues in the playoffs on their way to winning the Stanley Cup. And then finally, the 2017 Capitals did this as well. The Capitals lost in the second round that year and went on to win the Stanley Cup the following season. 3 of those teams won the President's Trophy that year. So typically you have a historic team, or at least the team that year that had the most points, and then the team that ended up winning at some point in the next 2 years the Stanley Cup. And there's the Canucks.
Don't they're the outlier. Don't look at them.
Alex, when you look at this Blues team, are they closer to the Panthers, Avs, and Capitals, or are they closer to last year's Canucks in terms of what they are, where they're at in their cycle as an organization, and what you think comes next beyond just this year?
I think they're closer, and it's hard to do, like, because all 3, at least with the exception of the Vancouver Canucks, they've just got different time periods, right? Like the Washington Capitals, they were there for a while. They just couldn't break through until they finally brought in Barry Trotz, and then they're like, cool, now we can break through. They win the Cup the next year. The Colorado Avalanche, I mean, we all saw that. That was a team that was just like right in the middle of just this dominant stretch, and they got through. I think they're closer to what the Florida Panthers were. And what I mean by that is I don't think they're the President's Trophy team. They've got the core in place. The Florida Panthers had Ekblad. They had just traded for Sam Reinhart. They had Barkov. Like, they had the pieces. But what did they say? This is great, but we're going to go aggressive and get more.
They also needed the coach. They brought in the coach the following year.
That's true. And Andrew Brunette was the one that took over for Joe Quenneville, and they said, no, we're going to go get the guy, and Paul Maurice was the guy. So it's a really good comp by you.
Thanks,
the
man.
Washington Capitals did that too, though, where they went from, I forget who their coach was prior. I think it was Bruce Boudreau.
Trotz.
Was Trotz there 16, 17? So he had already been there for an established time. Colorado's obviously was Bednar. I think you're closer to what the Panthers did, because I personally feel like the Blues are going to see this and say, this is great. We've got a lot of pieces. What does this look like moving forward? Because Vancouver got comfortable where they were at. You know, they were like, no, we're good. And then it all fell apart. I think the Blues are going to be more like the Panthers that say, this is great, but what else is out there to make us even better next season?
I agree. I think they're more like the Florida Panthers, because you can look at them and you can say, and we were saying this at the beginning portion of the year when things weren't going well, which was, man, you've got all these individuals that are playing well, and yet for some reason this just isn't working. And now it has finally clicked for them. And you look at that and you go, okay, you feel good about your core. And we were talking about this today in the office, and it's why I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but when we get to the offseason, I think it's going to be so fascinating, because Army's not the GM that's just going to say, boy, this was nice, let's just bring everything back and try it again. Most GMs don't do that, and Army's really not going to be a guy that does that. And that's why it kind of feels like the Panthers, to where it would be, okay, this was fun. We ended up getting into the playoffs. Who knows how deep they end up going? Maybe they get to like the Western Conference Finals, for example. Even then, I think Army would still look at that and say, we're still missing something. And it's time for me to go out and figure out what that piece would be. And then that would really be the Florida Panthers comp.
Man, I think there's a lot of comparisons with the Panthers. Like a lot of comparisons with the Panthers.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at like Gustav Forsling, for example. At the time when they did this, he was a 24-year-old defenseman who had previously played like 100 games with the Chicago Blackhawks. He was not considered to be like the next great thing in the NHL. And yet now he's a 23-minute per night top pair defenseman for them that put up 40 points each of the past 2 seasons and led the NHL in plus-minus last year. Mm-hmm. It's like that. I think the closest comparison for you would be what you have right now with Broberg.
Yeah. Well, look at the ages of these guys on that roster, too. 25-year-old Barkov, 23 or 25-year-old Sam Reinhart, 25-year-old Aaron Ekblad, 25-year-old Sam Bennett, 26-year-old Mason Marchman, and a 19-year-old Lundell. Like, the Blues actually are younger than what the Panthers were that season, because they've got guys that are 22, 23 years old and implementing some of these guys that are going to be 19 and 20.
But you also look at some of the guys that they acquired, and they did it similarly to the way that Doug Armstrong did, where he just continues offseason after offseason accumulating these young 25 to 27-year-old players. They went out and they were able to get Carter Verhaeghe, and he ends up becoming a really nice player for them. He had shown bits and pieces of what he could be with Tampa Bay, but it was very early on in his career. He was 24 years old, and he only spent 1 year with them. He comes over to Florida, and there's more here. He's not just a fourth-line player. This is a guy that can play in our top 6. Well, he then became a 25-goal scorer and eventually a 40-goal scorer for them. You see Sam Reinhart, who had some success, certainly, with Buffalo, but they decided to go their separate ways. He becomes a consistent 30-plus goal scorer for them. Brandon Montour is another guy that they brought in. And then finally, they bring in that final piece by trading Jonathan Huberdeau and trading Mackenzie Weegar to Calgary. Mm-hmm. And that's the kind of thing that this offseason, if the Blues want to, I don't know if they will or not, but they could go make that final push to bring in the star. Or they could say, you know what? We're good with the way that we're built. We think we have what is necessary internal. So I'm with you guys. I do think they are more similar to that. The other thing is, man, Vancouver last year, they were built basically around 2 or 3 star players.
Yeah, and they were built on hot streaks.
The Blues are not that. They're not built around JT Miller, Quinn Hughes, Elias Pettersson, and you can add in Brock Besser. It was basically those guys carrying the team. And then it was a bunch of also-rans beyond them. The Blues are the opposite. The Blues are legit 4 lines deep. They've got 4 or 5 defensemen that you consider to be like competent at any given time, and they've got multiple goalies. So I don't think they're all that similar to Vancouver.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's the more important thing from Matt DeFranks' tweet. They are not like what the Vancouver Canucks were, to where this was like, hey, this was fun. Can you build off of it? And then it falls flat on your face. They're more like the other teams that said, we're in the mid. So that's the thing with this, too. Florida's the opening of the window, but Colorado was in the middle of the window to where you needed to start winning. Washington Washington was in the middle of that window when you needed to start winning. It's why I think the Panthers is probably the closest resemblance, because we all agree Florida's just opening this window right now. They're going to be competitive.
They're in the middle of it.
Yeah, but when they did this, that was the first or second year of this. That's where I think the Blues are at right now with potentially younger players.
When you're at the beginning of something,
it's fun, man.
It feels pretty awesome.
Kerb says this all the time. He's not sure he's ever been this excited for an era of Blues hockey than what they're about to do right now. He said this last night on postgame with me, and we can ask him about this at 12:35 today. He said this might be the most offensively gifted roster that the Blues have ever had.
Wow.
In terms of...
More so than those 90s teams?
In terms of overall. Yeah, because those 90s teams, I mean, they were good, but they had Brett Hull, who was leading the charge. Like, he's talking about, you're talking from top line to third line with guys that could all be potential 30-goal scorers.
So he's basically saying, like, to put a finer point on this, and I'll be curious what he has to say about it. He can't remember a time where they had more players with the ability to score 25 goals.
Correct. He's never had this depth of offense in terms of excitement and skill set, because when you think of the skill set that all of these guys have, this isn't just about like you're bringing in one stud. You're bringing in a ton of guys who have offensive upside.
Let's count this off real quick. Guys that you think at some point in their career could be 25 goal scorers. At this point, right now, Kyrou is already there. Holloway is a goal away, so he's got the potential. Thomas, we think, can be a 25 goal scorer.
I think
Neighbors has proven he has the ability to be a 25 goal scorer. Shen certainly, but he's kind of a separate category.
I think he's probably on the backside.
Bolduc?
Yes.
Booch, you throw into this category.
If he stays healthy.
Are there other players currently on the roster that you think could be a 25 goal scorer at the NHL level? Because we've got 6 so far.
Dvorsky's currently on the roster, and I would say him.
Sure. Snuggerud, he's not currently on the roster.
Snuggerud when he gets there.
Is that it?
I think that's probably it, because Sundqvist isn't.
I don't think there's anybody else.
That's 8 players with the ability to be 25 goal scorers. I mean, that's insane.
Yep. This is why at the beginning of the season I said, man, I feel like it's very important for this team to make the playoffs, because this feels like the opening of the window, and then once you open it, it stays open for a good 5+ years if you've got it right. No coincidence, they signed Jim Montgomery to a 5-year contract when he was available as a head coach. They view this as welcome to the window of winning.
And I said at the time, you get Jim Montgomery to find out if that is true, because I disagreed with them. I didn't think they were at the beginning of that window. But if you truly believe that, you got to go make the decision. You got to go give yourself the chance. Eliminate one of the variables, and that's exactly what they did. By the way, have you seen what Boston's doing since they let old Monty
go? They must be winning.
How Brad Underwood call it?
Oh.
Yeah, Monty was the problem in Boston.
They have 69 points, which is tied for the 3rd fewest in the Eastern Conference. They have a -46 goal differential.
So Monty wasn't the problem.
The only teams in the East that have a worse goal differential than the Boston Bruins are the Penguins and the Flyers. If you go over to the Western Conference, you can add in the Predators, the Blackhawks, and the Sharks. In other words, teams that weren't trying to win this year, the team that has Sidney Crosby and really can't do anything about it, in Boston.
Yeah. Turns out that when you get rid of all of the talented players on your roster, it's kind of hard to stay competitive.
Brutal, man. All right, with Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up next, we continue our countdown of the 20 most important Cardinals for the 2025 season with number 3 on this list. I think we all have some regrets that we'd like to take back with this one. We'll talk about it next here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Number 3 on our list of the 20 most important Cardinals for the 2025 season is a guy that won't be in the opening day lineup in Nolan Gorman. I had him at number 6 on my list. Alex had him at number 5 on his list. And boy, is this not representative of our show. T-Bone had him at number 2 on his list of the 20 most important Cardinals
the T-Bone
for
3
2025. Let's get into the obvious. If we were doing this exact same list today, not sure he would make my top 10. And it's not based on my own belief in what Gorman can be. I still think that his skill set is extremely valuable. Power from the left side is hard to find. He's got it, despite the 35% strikeout rate, which, yes, that is something that is worth noting. But the Cardinals clearly don't value it the way that we do on the outside looking in. They have decided we prefer Alec Burleson as a bat. 1-for-1, who do we think gives us a better chance to win right now? It's Alec Burleson. Otherwise, they wouldn't be giving him the runway that was previously expected to go to Nolan Gorman. I had him at number 6 on my list, though. I was the lowest of the 3 of us. Alex, why'd you have him at number 5? And would you still have him there today?
No, I would not. He'd still be in my top 10. I think if I was redoing my list, Fetty would dip out of my top 10, and Gorman would probably dip down to number 10. But I would still have Scott, Helsley, Nootbaar, Donovan, Herrera, and then the guys that we have moving forward, which I think I might have spoiled the one, but we'll find out.
We'll talk about that later today.
That'll be good. I had him higher up because I did really feel like he was going to be the guy that's at second base every single day because they wanted to find out what he looked like. But things changed in spring training, and you can say that spring training stats don't matter. They obviously do, because they saw that the changes did not take place with Nolan Gorman, and they're like, no, we can't put this in the opening day lineup. I mean, Descalso just told us that, like if you're going to perform, you're going to be in the lineup. So I would have it switched right now. And when we did Donovan yesterday, I'm like, yep, Donovan should be higher up than Nolan Gorman when I put my list together. And I would have Gorman below Donovan, Nootbaar, and Victor Scott if I were to redo this list today.
So I was about to say, we can go through this real quick. With the players that we previously had gone through. Number 4 on our list was Mason Wynn. He'd be over he'd be over Nolan Gorman now, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nootbaar?
Yep.
Yeah.
Ryan Helsley?
Yeah.
Yep.
Wilson Contreras?
Yeah.
Brendan Donovan?
Yep.
Yeah.
Sonny Gray?
Yeah.
I would.
I'd hesitate, but sure.
Nolan Arenado?
Yeah.
Andre Palante?
Yeah.
Michael McGreevy?
I'd have him above of those last
so
3.
you're talking in that, like, roughly the 12-ish
I'd have him above those last 3.
You would potentially have Alec Burleson ahead of him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You would
absolutely.
have Victor Scott ahead of him now.
Yeah.
So you're talking about 15-ish?
Yeah.
That is a far cry from the guy that over the last few seasons we've been talking about. And whenever we have these conversations, it's Gorman and Walker, Gorman and Walker, Gorman and Walker. And this year it feels like we've kind of turned the page. And for the first time, it's not as much about Gorman and Walker. Now it is about Wynn and Donovan and Herrera and some of these other young guys, Scott, some of these other young guys that are coming up, like J.J. Weatherholt, for example. It's crazy how quickly this happens, but it seemingly happened in 6 weeks in spring training, T-Bone.
Yeah, it's amazing how far he has fallen, because, like, looking at my personal list, I wouldn't flip these guys, but he would have been 14th where I originally had Burleson. That's probably where he would have ended up on my list. What makes it interesting, because, I mean, you mentioned it was Walker and Gorman, and that's how it had been kind of approached by the Cardinals. I don't think that was ever the proper way to truly view Gorman, and it makes me fear they're going to push away from his type of profile. Because, sure, he is a guy that's going to strike out. Like, it's in his profile. He's never going to get rid of that. He's always going to be a bat that will strike out. He's also got the best pure power in the organization. Just hands down. He is the one guy that if you gave him 600 plate appearances, I would write in pen today, he's going to hit 300 not 300, he's going to hit 30 home runs.
If he hit 300, that
They'd
would
be
be
making a
impressive.
mistake.
That's a T-Bone 3 right there.
Yeah, 30 home runs is what I meant to say. But there's nobody else I think that could do that. Now, he's going to strike out more than anybody else in that lineup when you give them 600 plate appearances. But the reason I say, like, I don't think they should move away from his kind of bat is his batter profile. A lot of those guys don't hit in the middle of orders. They typically are more of the secondary pieces of
6, 7 hole
yeah,
hitters.
this is the perfect number 5, number 6, number 7 hole hitter to where it is. Yeah, it's in the bottom half of order. You make one mistake, that guy could put up a crooked number on the scoreboard for us because he's got that kind of power. And that's what I worry about with Gorman is they're going to look at not just him, because if he doesn't work, it's one thing. Okay, that's one player, but guys with his batter profile that they could potentially draft in future years, or if there is a guy that ends up coming through the system, or there's a guy on the market that they look at and they say, no, we want the guy that hits for contact. No, you need somebody with this kind of pop in his bat to be in your lineup.
I totally understand that, but I'm starting to get less and less concerned about that because it's starting to become at least apparent to me that he just might not be that guy for the Cardinals. And I don't know if that's on him. I don't know if that's on the Cardinals not developing him, but the 30 home runs over 162 games, you're going to look at and be like, man, are you kidding me? But, man, they got to come at the right time. If you go through a stretch of 2 months where you're not hitting and you're striking out, and that's the 2 months that you need to go on a run so you don't fall behind the 8 ball, what does it really matter? If he hits 15 of those 30 home runs in the final month and a half of the season and you're 10 games out, you got to have the guy who's the timely bat, not the guy that's the power bat.
Somebody on the text line said, guys, do you remember where you had Carlson's on the list over the last couple of years? And is Gorman the next Carlson, in your opinion? So I just pulled these up because I always keep these for our records just in case they become relevant down the road. Dylan Carlson in 2022 was at number 5 on our list. Carlson going into 2023 was at number 14.
It checks out.
And then Carlson going into this past season was not on our list. He ended up at he was 20th on our list. He did not make Alex's list, but he was 20th on T-Bone's, 18th on mine, and ended up, of course, not on the roster.
All of that checks out coming off of the rookie year where it looked like he was going to be a pivotal piece of the team versus, nope, injured, not a guy, versus, okay, done with it.
I am curious, and I would love to hear the text line's thoughts on this in the YouTube chat as well, youtube.com/101ESPN-STL. Text line 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Is this the fastest the Cardinals have moved on from a player? This would be effectively
moved on
year 3 of him as a full-time player would be this season.
Moved on from Arozarena pretty quick.
But I'm talking about guys that they believed in to the point where they gave them the runway. Randy A never got a chance here, and that's part of the problem.
I don't know if he counts Lane Thomas. Would he? Because I think they gave him a runway, and then at some point it was...
Let me ask this a different way. Is he the guy that had prospect pedigree that they moved on from the quickest? Because Thomas was never a top prospect.
That's fair. Yeah.
He was
he would be
middle of the top 30 for the Cardinals. Never was a top 100 guy. Nolan Gorman was a top 40 prospect in Major League Baseball.
I would say he has to be. I can't think of anybody else.
Carlson got a few years of struggles before they decided to move on.
Was Bader ever that high up? But he got a pretty long runway.
Yeah, Bader. I mean, he made it till the end of his rookie deal.
Tyler O'Neill. He wasn't a Cardinals draftee, but he still was a prospect.
Big prospect.
But I mean, they gave him a pretty significant runway too.
And his was more Nootbaar related. Mm-hmm. His was about, hey, he was actually less effective than Nootbaar, but if these injuries ever subside, can we get a better version of Tyler O'Neill? And then he got it, and then that threw him off the scent, and then they gave him another 2 years where he, once again, was ineffective and injured again.
Yeah, I mean,
is this the quickest?
I think so.
Probably. And I mean, you can even argue they gave up in on him last year, potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, they sent him down to the minors.
Yeah, he probably would be the quickest that I can think of. Like, I can't picture anybody else. And
isn't it funny how we were complaining about how they stick with these guys too long, and now they're pulling the plug on it, and we're complaining about it?
I mean, it is a real no-win proposition. It's hard. Yeah. Like, this is the thing about baseball is no two players are alike, and you never know. It's as much about the mental stuff as it is the physical side of things as well, and that's just so hard to scout, man. Like, how do you know how a guy is going to translate to the big league level when really what that's about is how do they deal with failure? Because that's what the big leagues are about, man. You can get up to the big leagues and have all the talent in the world. Dude, some of those guys, I always feel this way about basketball players because you can see it more clearly. It's easier to see. The game just translates more for just your random person that can play at the YMCA or down at your local gym. If you took the 13th guy on an NBA roster and you put him in a gym with the best players from this area that are playing rec league games, they would kick their ass. They would run up and down the court with them. The 13th dude on that basketball team in the NBA. The same thing's true for Major League Baseball players, dude. They're ridiculous. You guys have seen this at the home run derbies. Mm-hmm. These are guys that are like 45 and 50 years old that are coming back just hitting bombs all across the field. So these guys are all talented. It's about how do you deal with the failure. And for a guy like Gorman, it's clearly weighed on him, man. It's hard to strike out as often as he does and to still feel as though you're going to figure it out the next day. I don't know, man. It's really difficult. And this is why, yes, you can criticize the Cardinals all you want, and they have earned that. But also, it's a tough job. and getting it right with these guys is really difficult regardless of how you go about it. I personally think a longer runway is better for these guys. Find out what you have internally before you decide to plug that hole by going out externally. He's still 24 years old, man. He's 24 years old. This would be year 3 of him being an everyday player at the big league level, but it seems clear they've decided that there are better alternatives out there.
And I'm okay with it. I mean, as much as it kind of hypocritical from where we were to where I said, like, you got to give him the leash. If you're not happy with what took place in the offseason, like, the offseason is when you're supposed to right the issues that you had the season prior. And it's pretty evident that, sure, maybe he's tweaked some things, but it's not making a difference, at least through spring training, when you should be pouncing on the opposition. There's other guys now that have made the transition in the offseason. Victor Scott, to be specific, I'd rather see.
We've got a couple of people that said, guys, it's only a matter of time before he's in the lineup. Somebody else quite hyperventilating. He's still a 24-year-old prospect. They're not giving up on him.
We'll see.
See, real quick to their point on, like, hey, he'll be in the lineup. I think I said this at the beginning of the season of, hey, I thought he had the shortest leash of all the young bats. I also think he has the hardest path to getting back in the lineup. And the reason I say that is because of his profile. We know he's going to swing and miss. You know he's going to strike out. So it's going to become a lot harder to look at him and say, okay, well, how is he going to get at-bats when I've got a Burleson who's putting the ball in play, a Donovan who's putting the ball in play, Victor Scott, whose profile should be to put the ball in play. Like, to me, he has the toughest path from being a guy that starts on the bench that gets back into the starting lineup. Like, I think Burley would have had an easier time going through that path because of Gorman's swing and miss. I just find it so hard to figure out, like, okay, well, if you're not going to just live with it now, when are you going to decide to live with it? I guess when an injury occurs, that would be the only time that I would say that.
It's a boomer bust profile, and he better be booming when he gets that opportunity in order to stay in the lineup, because if there's that bust aspect, which is going to come with his profile, they're not going to go back to him. All right, he's Alex, that's T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up next, we're talking to Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues, here on 101 ESPN.
Hey, one of the most important pieces of equipment in your home is your furnace and your air conditioner, your HVAC. That's what we're referring to. This is why I keep telling everybody to get a hold of the folks at Classic Air Care. One, it makes your home comfortable. Two, keeping your home safe. Making sure these things are maintained is one of the biggest reasons to avoid and one of the biggest ways to avoid a major repair. So in the spring and in the fall, you have them come out to the house. You have them just do a service check on it. It's no different than changing the oil on your car. Did you know that one of the biggest things you could actually do to help maintain that unit is to make sure that you're changing that air filter on a regular basis? So not only is that just important for the air quality in your house, but it's actually important as well just for the life of that air conditioning unit. Get a hold of the folks at Classic Air Care. Have them come out. You can get on their schedule today. You can go online at classicaircare.com. Look at their different service plans as well. You're going, why do I need a service plan? This way it's out of sight, out of mind. You get the discounted price on it. You get the service that you know is coming in twice a year. And you get priority scheduling if anything does need bigger repairs for your house. It's Classic Air Care. They take care of my home. They'll take care of yours. ClassicAirCare.com. They've been making people comfortable since 1926.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues took care of business last night, taking down the Montreal Canadiens. They'll be back in action tomorrow night when they visit the Nashville Predators. Well, pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario, then puck drop at 7 o'clock with the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber. And Kerbers will join us next here on BK and Ferrario. This Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See Londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Happy to go out to the Callier and Thompson hotline to be joined by the voice of the Blues. He's calling a whole hell of a lot of wins right now. He's Chris Kerber joining us as he does each and every Wednesday on BK and Ferrario. Kerbs, how you doing today, man?
Doing awesome. Pretty cool that this team is on the verge of a 40-win season this year.
Yeah. It's insane, Kerb. It's absolutely insane. I want to get let's talk about this 10,000-foot view for just a moment, okay? I talked about this earlier today, and I said I think this is the best place to be as a fan of a sports team, where you had no expectations, and then something miraculous happens, and you're right in it, and you feel like anything is possible for your team. Kerbs, you've been around this organization for 20 years, and you grew up as a fan of them. What is this like watching from your perspective?
Well, I'm going to take you back to all the conversations we had kind of leading into the season, then the first part of the season. Heck, I'll take you back to even some conversations that we had, in January. And I'm like, look, this team could make the playoffs. They could end up with a top 5 pick. And I could make a case where both scenarios are a good thing. I went into this season, honestly, with little expectations because of just the rebuild, the retool process and what it takes. And you know that it takes younger players time to learn. It takes even, middle players like Robert Thomas time to learn how to be that number one center, get used to all those matchups, things along those kind of lines. And only experience gets you to where you need to go. I mean, Ryan O'Reilly was great for the Blues, but when the Blues got him, don't forget, he had 10 years of seasoning between Colorado and Buffalo already, right? So, but here's what changed for me, BK. I'm sitting in Montreal with a member of Hockey Ops asking just some questions about the team, getting their thoughts. They kind of said, look, we're underperforming a little bit. We think we've put together a team that can make the playoffs. I was a little shocked because I hadn't heard anybody say that, and I went, really? Okay, then we're in Boston. Different member of Hockey Ops. Kind of in the radio booth, shooting the bull, talking, they kind of make the same comment. That's when both eyebrows raised. I looked at Joe and I said, I think we could see a coaching change. The true story there, because I'm like, this team is clearly not meeting expectations, and that's now two different people that have said, we think we have a roster that can make the playoffs. Now, will it? Do a couple things have to come together? Well, the biggest thing that's come together, obviously, has been the head coach, and then the buy-in from the players after that. And look at where they're at. So I'd say right now that while my expectations, maybe yours and some others, were a little bit less, they appear to be meeting the expectations of the people that put the roster together. Kind of cool.
It really is. And Curbs, going off of that buy-in that you mentioned from the players, we are starting to see just that physical aspect really showcase itself. It seems like every time somebody's on the ice, they finish their check. And we had this conversation on the podcast earlier this morning. I personally feel like that physical element of the game, it kind of wakes the beast with this Blues team right now, to where when one team wants to get chippy, the Blues look at that as a challenge from the opposition and say, cool, we'll play that brand, and that's what brings the best out in them.
Yeah, I do think, Alex, it's an interesting question and a great topic, because I think the physicality is part of the process, right? It's not like they said, hey, for us to be better, for us to get to this point, we have to hit more. We have to put our bodies through bodies more. Like when they were chasing the games early on, sometimes you had to chase that physicality because you weren't positionally in the right spot. Well, they're finding themselves in the right spots, and then other players know, okay, if this guy's going to be here, it's that thing that we talk a lot about, that predictability to your teammate. And that predictability is, where are you going to be? You go back to the first half of this season, and you'll see a play happen, and you're like, nobody was there. And it doesn't mean that the guy with the puck made the wrong play, but he should have been there. And now you're seeing 2-3 guys around a puck. You're seeing an errant puck, but it's going to somebody because somebody's in position. One of the things that Jim Montgomery and this coaching staff has worked very hard is a lot of those kind of details. And by doing so, I'm thinking it's lending to physicality. You notice that the same team looks even faster now than they did before. And the reason is because when you play the puck right and you play the puck into certain areas better, you're going to look faster because you're going where the puck is, and the puck makes you look faster. Well, that leads to this physicality. And I think the physicality part is just another piece of the puzzle that is coming in. Now, where it is contagious, I look at Braden Shen over the last couple of years as the one guy that when his teammate needed somebody to go to bat for him, he did. He brought the physicality into it. Go back a couple of games, the team might have looked a little bit flat. He took 3 runs at guys, right? And on one shift, and that seemed to change kind of the feel on the bench and the momentum of that game. But now you see Jake Neighbors doing it. Tyler Tucker's come up, and he's really made a physical impact. He's realized, hey, this is the style I'm going to have to play, right? Then you see, what do you see? Well, you see Zach Bolduc, getting fined by player safety for a cross-check after a guy nearly took out Robert Thomas. You talk to him afterwards, he goes, well, that's what you had to do, right? That's one of our best players. Like, it's now becoming ingrained, and that culture that Dylan Holloway talked to us about in the postgame show yesterday, that winning culture, that winning style, that winning approach and battle for your teammates is back. And that's why Braden Shen, I think, a couple of games referred to there's been something missing that some of us know about in these last couple of years, and we feel that it's back. And it all comes together around some of that physicality.
It happens so fast. That's what's crazy, Curbs. It's like you leave it, you lose it over time, and then it returns like that, and it's been a hell of a lot of fun to watch. Final question that I've got for Chris Kerber, voice of the Blues, joining us as he does each and every Wednesday here on BK and Ferrario. Curbs, I'm going to ask this question, and you may totally reject the premise, and that's fair. The Blues are right there when it comes to the first wild card now. They're just 2 points back. They've played one extra game over the Wild. Out of curiosity, what do you think is the better first-round matchup for the Blues, Vegas or Winnipeg? Set aside the likelihood of them getting the first overall wild card. Who do you think is the better matchup for the Blues?
Yeah, that's a great question there. To me, Winnipeg seems to have given the Blues some fits over the years, just with the style of play that they've had, creating that havoc, and yet the Blues are able to get them. I like either matchup because of our goaltending over either one of those guys. And yes, I'm still saying Bennington over Hellebuck, right? Despite the heck of a year that he's having. The Blues have played really well in Vegas, and they played really well against Vegas. I think the way these teams are going right now, I think Vegas is a better matchup for the St. Louis Blues. I really do. So, you know, the one I'd really like is Dallas. Let's see if we can get Colorado in our mix, right? But I love that matchup idea. But yeah, you know what? It's an interesting question there. But I actually think Vegas has pulled the best out of this team. So I'm gonna for right now, I'm gonna go with the better matchup for us might be Vegas right now.
Curbs, you can selfishly say you're saying that because you want to be in Vegas for the first round of the playoffs.
Which
I'm with
would
you.
Be totally understandable.
Yeah, Ferrario will be out there with you guys.
I could give a rat's patootie about Vegas. Okay? Like, you get to a point. No, listen, I appreciate going into nice places. We stay at great hotels, right? You know, would I rather be in Las Vegas than Winnipeg? You bet. But if it's Winnipeg, I'll take it, right? You know, but having said that, sometimes you get to it's rinks and hotels, and the fun part for me right now is just being able to be around these guys, go into the locker room, talk hockey with them, feel that vibe that they're feeling, and understand what's going on. Because I said this last night on the postgame show. I don't know if you guys agree with this or not. I fully expect, because of the game in hand factor, I fully expect this race to tighten up and have a little indigestion at some point in time. I don't think that the Blues are a lock in any way, and I think it's going to get a little hairy yet. I hope it doesn't, but it's not going to surprise me if it does. As my whole thing, and I did this, and I've done this for a long time. When you're on a run like this, like Crash Davis said, you just got to appreciate a streak and take it, because they don't happen all the time. So you got to respect the streak and enjoy it. Will it result with the Blues in the playoffs? I hope so. If it doesn't, I don't think it takes anything away from this streak and this kind of style. And if you're a Blues fan, I think you have to be extraordinarily excited about next year. And Jim Montgomery having a full year with this team and this style of play, game in, game out. They are showing you why being a season ticket holder and stuff is going to be important, because this team is rising, it's coming, and it is fun to watch. So it's a great run right now. I hope it ends in the playoffs. If for some reason it doesn't, I'm excited as all hell for what's coming, because they're showing some real stuff right now.
This city's given us some pretty good streaks over the last 6 or 7 years, Alex. Because 2021, the Cardinals 17-game winning streak down the stretch to be able to get into the postseason. You think back to 2019 with the Blues, what they were able to give us as well, and then certainly what we're witnessing right now. It's been a hell of a lot of fun to watch. Chris Kerber has been on the call, and he will be on the call coming up against the Predators. That is a game that will be played tomorrow night in Nashville. Pregame for that one begins at 6. Puck drop at 7 right here in your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN. Curbs, we appreciate the time as always, my friend. We'll talk with you again next week.
All right, fellas. Have a great weekend. See you next week.
Absolutely. Same to you. That is Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues, joining us as he does each and every Wednesday here on BK and Ferrario. By the way, the Blues, and more specifically Enterprise Center, are hosting the PWHL Takeover Tour. This is coming up on March 29th. So coming up this weekend, 1 o'clock. Tickets are on sale right now. If you want to go check this out, enterprisecenter.com is where you can go. enterprisecenter.com. It's the PWHL in its second year. They are concluding their inaugural Takeover Tour. This is 9 cities that they've gone to, and Saturday's game will be between Boston and Ottawa. It's taking place right here in St. Louis. Features St. Louis native Jinsey Dunn, who's going to be here in St. Louis at this game. So again, if you want to check out the tickets for that, March 29th at 1 o'clock, enterprisecenter.com is where you go to buy those tickets. Alex, it's been a hell of a lot of fun to watch these Blues over the last few weeks, and one thing that I couldn't help but think about as he was talking about the run they're on right now and appreciating it for what it is regardless of the result, man, it reminds me so much of this Mizzou basketball season, where like I can appreciate what they did against Florida and Alabama and Kansas and those moments that I got as a fan, while also acknowledging, yeah, it ended in frustration. The end result was incredibly disappointing, and it ended with a thud against Drake. And it may happen for the Blues. It's entirely possible, man. But
we're winning it all. What the?
What this run is, what it represents, and what it can mean for them next year and beyond, that doesn't wash away regardless of what the result is for this season.
Yeah, you will not hear a angry Ferrario if they miss the playoffs. I mean, is it going to be a bummer? Absolutely, because I want the playoffs back in St. Louis, and I feel like it's kind of it's a necessity for this Blues team to get a taste of the playoffs. But Kerbs is right. I mean, this is a massive turnaround from what last year was, and it's interesting because last night, Kerb said on the broadcast, the Blues are now 10 games above 500. And I looked at him and I said, when was the last time the Blues were 10 games above 500? He goes, last year. I go, what? He goes, yeah, last year under Bannister, they did this. And he said it's back-to-back seasons where a slow start out of the gate is what hurt this team's chances of making the playoffs. Now you don't have the question mark of the coach. Now you don't have a question mark of the culture that we've been questioning for the last 3 years. You're seeing it, and you're seeing it for potentially 27, 26 games at the end of the season. And if you miss by 1 point, yeah, you're going to look back and you say, I should have got that done at this game or that game. But you're also going to look at it and say, yeah, but this team's set up for success. This team's got all the pieces. They just played playoff hockey. They know the mistakes they're going to have to correct. And then you go into next year. So this was a huge win for the Blues, and now they're setting themselves up for every single one of these core pieces to look at their roster and say, we're bringing the same thing back next year. There's no reason that we can't be what the Panthers were the following season or the Capitals were the following season because of all of the success we had in 2 months.
If my math is correct, I believe if they lose their next game, they will have the exact same points percentage as they did last year. And this goes back to what we said before the season. T-Bone and I were on the side of the Blues might be a better team and have a worse record than what they were last year. That was entirely possible because they had so many young guys. And so I expected, hey, you're going to make some mistakes. It's going to be that first year, those first year struggles, and it probably leads to the puck going in your own net more often than you'd probably like. What has impressed the hell out of me in this stretch of games in the way that they've been playing is that they still have those same young players, but they're playing like veterans now. And it happened so quickly. That mindset shift during the Four Nations face-off, it went from young mistakes to, holy crap, this team's playing like a veteran squad now that's playing legit winning style hockey every single night. And that's what's really been impressive to me. So it's been a lot of fun to watch. I hope like hell that this team gets into the playoffs because if they do, they're capable of anything. This team, I asked the question of, would you rather play Vegas or Winnipeg? They could beat either of them.
To me, there's not a matchup that I'm worried about. Like,
they could lose to anybody.
Yeah.
They could also beat anybody.
Why I'm not worried about it is because I don't think there's a matchup out there that the Blues are going to go into when you say, yeah, this will be done in 4 games for the opposition.
No doubt.
I think no matter what they get, who they play, where they play, it's going to be a 6 or 7 game series, and I think the Blues have the advantage because of the goaltending.
He's Alex, it's T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up next, the Junk Drawer here on 101 ESPN. All right, Alex, last night we watched a documentary on the Joplin tornadoes from back in 2011.
I saw the previews for that. Haven't watched it yet.
Well done. I'm not giving anything away, I promise you.
Well, we know what happened,
Probably
actually.
are familiar with the story.
I remember. I was actually,
Can you spoil a documentary?
was watching it.
Fair question, T-Bone, and I apologize. I need to be better. Take two. So the way that they set up the documentary was basically they talked to, it's like 6 or 8 different people that were in Joplin when this took place, and they all give their perspectives, which are very different perspectives on what took place over that, 12 hours or whatever. I thought it was really well done, first of all, and if you remember following it at the time, it was pretty close to all of us. I think it's worth a watch. It's over on Netflix. But it got me to thinking, man, what's the worst way to go? Because I've got to imagine.
That's dark.
It is. It's where my mind goes a lot of the time.
Yeah, hey, man, me
I'm talking
too.
to my shrink about it.
Gotta shrink. Good for you.
I've got to imagine getting sucked up into a tornado is among those.
Well, yeah, because you don't die. It's not an instant death.
No, you're getting
awake.
shaken around. Like, it spins you around with whatever else is getting sucked up. And so whether it's glass shards or a car.
Or a cow, like in Twister.
It could be anything that ends up being the thing that takes you.
This is going to sound weird. I still don't think that's the worst way to go. And I've never been in a Twister. But, there's still a chance of survival. There have been people that have been picked up by Twisters and have been okay. I think the worst way to go is still drowning.
So there's a poll out.
Of course. So did you put it out on your Twitter account?
No, this is not from me.
You dark son of a...
The worst and most painful ways to die, according to science.
Dude, there's a TV show on Spike TV, by the way, that used to be 1,000 Ways to Die. It was one of my favorite TV shows to watch.
Number 1, crucifixion. Number 2, drowning.
Yep.
Number 3, lethal injection. Number 4, electrocution. That would be brutal.
I would put electrocution over lethal injection.
Number 5, sudden decompression. So this is what happened with that. I
feel like that's an instant death, though, isn't it? I mean, they just exploded.
It'd be like just getting crushed.
Yeah, and you just get exploded. I would not have that up there with the others.
Number 6, burning.
Yeah, burning would be number 3 for me.
And number 7, pancreatic cancer.
Understandably so.
Rough way to go.
This is going to sound like, and I'm sure
honorable mention, freezing to death.
Yeah, that would. I don't even know if that's an honorable mention. I think the decompression should be the honorable mention because I think you just explode. Do crucifixions still happen? I'm sure they do.
Yeah, I don't know.
In other places, but that would no doubt be the worst way to go. I would have drowning number 2 and burning number 3. I would not have lethal injection above electrocution. All of the serial killer stuff.
I'm trying to think of which one's worse between drowning and burning.
I feel like
drowning, you're gasping for air and it fills your lungs with fluid. Not great. Burning is such like a.
I think they're both awful because you're waiting for death. You're waiting for death to happen. Would you rather your skin be peeling apart or would you rather not be able to breathe? That's the question you're asking.
I think drowning would be slightly better, and we're on a scale of these are both horrific. I want to make that clear. I think I would rather drown than burn. I think
someone said they heard your drowning isn't as bad because your brain shuts off. See, I feel like your brain doesn't shut off. Like the oxygen, obviously, when it goes, but you know it's happening. I just, how about just instant out? That's what I want.
I liked when we were having fun talking Blues hockey. This is kind of dark stuff.
Well,
guys.
but Cardinal season's about to start up, so
I know. So we got to
it's going to be like drowning.
Enjoy the fun while we can.
It's going to be like drowning.
All right, let's
we're
talk about
tied
the
for
Blues.
first place right now. Okay.
See, there it is. This is a 4th straight day the Cardinals have been in first place.
Yeah.
Why do I feel like there's people in broadcasting right now that are saying that?
Right now we're on pace not to lose. Okay, that's true.
Right now we're on pace for 162-0.
That's inaccurate because we got 0 wins.
I am gonna.
Seriously,
I
don't you know how this works?
Because I was like,
I am gonna despise every single first couple of days of the regular season for the Cardinals.
You're going to despise every day of the season.
When they're bad, I'm going to celebrate it. It's like,
what a weird way to live. I feel like that is becoming more and more common as a fan of your
Don't do
team.
this speech again.
Dude, you do this speech once a week.
Alex gets a little too pre-mad for my liking, but I hate the whole. We should always have fun in sports.
Let's all be friends and sports.
By the way, I looked it up. The Blues are 0-4-2 against Vegas over the last 2 years.
Really?
Yeah, that's fine.
I don't want to play them. I changed my mind.
They're always one-goal games. I
Road trip to Winnipeg.
I second Curbs. I want the Pacific Division in the first and second round. I don't want the Central.
All right, let's talk about the Blues coming up next on 101 ESPN. Hey, coming up in 10 minutes, we're going to give you a chance to beat the Blues. Our three contestants today will be going up against Jordan Kyrou. The winner will earn a signed puck by Jordan Kyrou and Blues versus Red Wing tickets. That's coming up on April the 1st. 314-399-9646 is the Your Comfort Service text line. If you would like to go up against Jordan Kyrou today in our game called Can You Beat the Blues? text in right now. I can beat the Blues, and you'll be one of the only ones that's been able to do that over the last few weeks. Beat the Blues coming up next. We will have 3 contestants going up against Jordan Kyrou today. All right, Alex, the Blues right now, you look at what they've done with their wingers and what they've been able to develop. It's what the Cardinals are hoping to do this year. They need to develop some bats. The Blues really needed to develop some wingers. Last year, really good season by Jake Neighbors. The question was, can he back that up? Can you avoid the one-off, or can you be a consistent 20-plus goal scorer? I think there was some reluctance to believe that among some. You certainly were not one of those people. You believed that Neighbors had the talent, the skills to be able to be a consistent 20-plus goal scorer. He's become that for them. They went out and they acquired Dylan Holloway via the offer sheet. Well, look at what he's done. 25 goals this year, 60 points, plus 18 on the ice. He's been unbelievable. I feel like the most impressive development that they've had this year is with Zach Bolduc, who went from a guy that was in and out of the lineup early on this season to a player that at least has a chance now to be a 20-goal scorer. He's at 15 right now. We'll see if he's able to keep this hot streak going, but he's top 10 in the NHL since the Four Nations faceoff in goals scored. Alex, can you describe what we've witnessed by the way that the Blues have developed these wingers in 2025? Add in Jordan Kyrou, by the way, who's developed an all-around game now.
Yeah, I think the development that you're seeing is you're turning these guys that have had an unbelievable amount of talent into NHL players. And what I mean by that is they've understood the assignment of it's not all about goals in the offensive zone. Really, the offense comes when you play that two-way style. When you're great defensively, the offense is going to come. And Kyrou even said that a few games ago when he snapped that, what was it, a 7-game goalless route that he had. And he was on the postgame, I believe, with Kerbs and Joey. And they asked him about it, and he said, look, I just need to stick to what I know can get me the offense, and that's playing a responsible style of hockey. Look at how Dylan Holloway plays. He's a two-way guy. Now Jordan Kyrou is doing that. Look at Zach Bolduc. Jake Neighbors has always done that. All of these guys that we're talking about, none of them are playing the I'm going to dangle in the neutral zone, I'm going to beat you with speed, and we're going to just score off the rush. That's what the Blues used to be. And you remember what 2 years ago was like, right? Yep. It was one guy who was a 30-goal scorer, and he was a minus 20-something. Now you've got 5 guys that play a specific style of hockey, and that's the development. Bolduc has talked a lot about it, whether he's been in the press box sitting with Alex Steen or he's working every single practice with Claude Julien. They're working on these small things that you don't notice in games, and those are what's leading to the offensive opportunities, and everybody has officially bought into it, which is why you're seeing this depth of offense.
It's been really impressive to watch.
And by the way, the excitement comes because you know Dvorsky and Snuggerud are going to go through the same development process that Neighbors and Bolduc have just gone through.
Kyrou's development path at the NHL level has been really unique to watch, because this is a guy that, I mean, you look at his overall numbers, right? Nationally, I think a lot of people do this. We would talk to people that aren't from this market, that don't watch the Blues every single night, but that see a decent amount of Blues games, and they see the numbers for Jordan Kyrou, and they're like, yeah, that's a top-line player. Jordan Kyrou, if he was made available, every team in the NHL at his contract would want to have Jordan Kyrou on their roster. And then locally, it was like, yeah, but he doesn't play defense. And he plays this rush-style hockey that, sure, you can win with it to a degree, but it's not going to win for you in the playoffs. So over the last 2 years, 68 goals and 140 points, but he was a minus 50. And then you look at him this year, and it clicked for him. And I don't know if that's just because of the coaching staff, if he just needed to fail, if he needed that moment where he was booed by the home fans, or if it was as simple as, hey, Dylan Holloway and Braden Shin are bringing out the best in Jordan Kyrou. But whatever it is, to watch him this season and compare it to what it was over the past couple of years, I didn't know he had this in him, man. I didn't know that he was capable of being this style of player. And now you know that they can unlock that out of players. Yeah. And that's the most important thing for me as a fan, is I now go into it and say, all right, Kyrou was able to become this, which means the next player that may have some struggles defensively early on, they're a true goal scorer, I can have some patience and believe this coaching staff will be able to get the most out of them down the road, even if it's a rocky road to get there. Dylan Holloway, he was really good from the very beginning, but he's got better over the course of the season. Zach Bolduc, there's a plan. Maybe it is for Dalibor Dvorsky, who's in and out of the lineup right now. Maybe he's out of the lineup tonight or yesterday, and maybe he's out of the lineup again on Thursday. whenever he's back in the lineup, they're going to be able to implement something into his game that wasn't there in his first debut against Nashville. So you could take bits and pieces of this even as a fan looking from the outside looking in and say, it gives me confidence and a belief that they'll be able to get this out of the future guys that end up coming up as well.
Joey and I talked about this on pregame a couple of games ago because Joey had a conversation with Barry Trotz, his first year with the New York Islanders. And Trotz had said, I talked with Matt Barzal, who's their top centerman, and I talked to him and said, you are great with the puck. You need to be better without the puck. That's the development that players have to figure out if you want to be an NHLer. You've got all the talent in the world, but are you great without the puck? Because until you are, you're going to be always chasing it. You're going to be what Patrick Laine is for the Montreal Canadiens. I don't know if people noticed it last night.
Dude.
All Laine does is stand in one spot and expect the team to get him the puck. You don't win that way. You can score 40 goals in the NHL that way. Laine did it. But guess what? Over time, teams are going to figure it out, and it's not going to work. So
Body language also sucks.
Totally. Well, I mean, it's Patrick Laine. And I know he's been dealing with a lot of off-ice stuff as well, but this has been Laine for the last 6+ years. But what I'm trying to get at is Jordan Kyrou figured out that I've got to be better away from the puck for my offense to continue. Now, whether that was getting booed by the fans, whether that was Jim Montgomery coming in, or if it was Dylan Holloway playing on the same line of him, he figured it out. It's what I think a lot of people are hoping on the Cardinals side of things. Guys like Nolan Gorman and Jordan Walker figure out. Like, until you understand that you've got to adapt to the Major League Baseball, your old ways don't work. So that's what Kyrou has done. It's why Matt Barzal has been so great. It's what Alex Ovechkin did when the Capitals won the Cup. You've got to develop a two-way game if you want to be a mainstay in the National Hockey League.
It's also hard to do. It's hard to get that message to a player and say, it's going to be better if you do this for us when they're so skilled like Jordan Kyrou is, and he's putting up 70 points because in their mind, and I think it would be semi-understandable if this was his perspective on it, dude, I'm putting up 70-plus points a year. I'm not your problem. You've got other issues lower in the lineup where I'm the only one producing on this bleeping team. You want to be a better team? Go get better players around me, and that will be the way that we end up winning. I don't, clearly, that wasn't the perspective that Jordan Kyrou had, at least certainly not this year, but it would be semi-understandable if it was somebody's perspective. My guess is Laine has had that at times in the past. Maybe Pierre-Luc Dubois is another guy that maybe had some of that in his past as well. But it's hard to get them to the place of, all right, you're going to have to play different, or this is never going to work for us. Like, you're never going to be able to win at the level that you want to. It's cool to see it kind of clicking for all of these guys seemingly simultaneously, and they're all getting the best version of themselves.
And that's the wild part, man. Like, you're not just developing guys who have the potential to be stars. All of these guys are two-way players. Think of the guys we just mentioned. Bolduc's been great in his own end. Kyrou's doing that. Holloway's doing that. Neighbors is doing that. Dvorsky, they talk about how great he is as a two-way centerman. Snuggerud, we'll see once he gets to the NHL level.
It was the thing that stood out to us about Bolduc from the moment that we first saw him was like, hey, I thought this guy was like a pure goal scorer. Yeah. He plays with more physicality than I thought that he did. He's a little better away from the puck than I was expecting. And so it showed you, all right, there's room for growth in this area, certainly, but he's already got kind of the starter kit to be a decent all-around player, and he's already.
And that's what makes a pack mentality. I know people don't believe in it, and again, it's a very difficult way to build a team. But man, when you've got all of the guys playing the same style for 82 games, that's how you build a pack mentality.
Hey, coming up on Saturday, the St. Louis Blues are back in action. They'll be against the Colorado Avalanche. That is coming up at 3:30. But before that game is played, you can come join me in 101 ESPN at Genesis of St. Charles. It'll be an afternoon filled with fun and excitement. Saturday from 1 to 3 o'clock, bring the whole family by. We'll have face painting, a balloon artist, food trucks, and a special appearance by Louie and the Blue Crew as well. Plus, I will have your chance to win a pair of tickets to a Blues home game as well. That's Saturday, 1 to 3 o'clock, right before the Blues game against the Colorado Avalanche at Genesis of St. Charles, located at 5601 Veterans Memorial Parkway. For full information, go to 101ESPN.com. Coming up next, we're going to play our latest edition of Can You Beat the Blues? We've got 3 contestants. They'll be going up against Jordan Kyrou today. That's next on BK and Ferrario.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends out at Ted Drew's famous frozen custard just off of Chippewa, where it is a perfect time to get out there and enjoy that famous frozen custard. It's a tradition, whether it's a family tradition or a friend's tradition. All I know is when you go to Ted Drew's, you see similar faces that are always coming out there, sitting in the parking lot, talking, catching up, and enjoying that famous frozen custard. I love getting to do this on Fridays with my girls. We go out. Friday nights are our nights to go eat and then go to Ted Drew's and enjoy that famous frozen custard. And it's been a family tradition. 4 generations have been serving St. Louis that famous frozen custard that has been around since 1929. And while you go out there, you could check out all the flavors, all the styles. You could buy it in bulk, bring it home with you. It's Ted Drew's that you know and love. While you're there, make sure you walk across the parking lot and check out the gift shop, which you could get Ted Drew's apparel. You could get Ted Drew's souvenir. You can also buy Ted Drew's gift cards, perfect gifts to get people that you never know what to give. So get on out there today and start building those traditions. Ted Drew's, real custard, real tradition. Ted Drew's, it's St. Louis.
All right, with Alex and T-Bone on BK, it is time for the latest edition of Can You Beat the Blues? It is a very simple game. We'll ask you something within a category. So I'll ask Alex, name as many different colors as you can in 15 seconds. Alex will then have 15 seconds to name as many different colors as he can.
Red, blue, green, yellow, orange, gray, black, white.
End of segment. And then we'll go over to our contestant
Fuchsia.
that day, which today is Jordan Cairo. We'll see how many he's able to get within the same category. Your differential, point differential, will end up determining who is going home with the prize. Today, that prize is a signed hockey puck by Jordan Kyrou and tickets to see the Blues versus the Red Wings. That is coming up on April the 1st. Again, it is a very simple game. It goes pretty quick. Kyrou is your contestant today. He's going up against John, Chris, and Mark today on the station. And we have John joining us first. John, appreciate you tuning in and calling in. How you doing today, my man?
All right, how you guys doing?
Doing really well. Do you understand the rules of the game?
Yes, I do.
All right, John. And do you think you're going to be able to beat Jordan Kyrou today?
I will do my best.
John,
All right.
and totally off topic. Do you call it Budweiser or Bud Heavy?
Good question.
Budweiser.
There you
Yeah.
go. Plus 5 points already for you, John. Way to go.
My apologies, John. I can't root for you today. All right, John, you're going
this
up
guy.
against Kyrou, and your category today is musicians. Name as many different musicians as you can in 15 seconds. On your mark, get set, go.
Guitarist, drummer, violin player, pianist, trumpet player, saxophone player.
All right. This is on me.
Technically, he did name musicians.
No, this is on me, and I'm going to give him the 5. I feel bad.
Someone is
because
lenient.
no. I feel bad because I should have been more clear. I should have said bands or musicians, the names of the musical artists. That would have made it more clear.
That would have been easy.
Yeah.
I think we let him go again.
You can let him go again.
You want to do it?
Yeah.
All
Let
right,
him go again.
Sean, you're getting a do-over. You got 15 seconds. Name as many bands, musicians as you can. 15 seconds on your mark. Get set. Go.
AC/DC, Def Leppard, Bon Jovi, Aerosmith, Pearl Jam, Collective Soul, Beatles, U2, Nickelback, Creed.
9. I got him at 9.
I had him at 9, but hold on. John, look, I love Nickelback, all right? I'm one of the few people, but, man, we had AC/DC, U2.
It was basically a list, a collection of the best rock and roll bands of the last
And then
60
Creed.
years. And then Nickelback.
It's the
and
best.
Creed.
It's the best.
I love it.
It's
so
the best
much.
rock band of the last 25 years. But my goodness, that
Well,
was phenomenal.
I figured Kyrou, being a Canadian, would know the Nickelback, so.
There you go. I respect it. That was well done, John, and that was a much better performance by you. We got 9 from John. Let's hear Jordan Kyrou and how many musicians he can name.
Justin Bieber, Sabrina Carpenter, The Weeknd, Drake, Loud Luxury, Bruno Mars, Chris Brown, Rihanna, Beyonce.
Do we have a tie?
I had a tie.
I had him at 8.
I had him at 9.
Adam 9 as well. All right. John, we got you with a tie going up against Jordan
How can't we
Kyrou.
count? Or I can't count.
Well, you can't count. We can count fine.
I feel like I might be stupid here. Do you guys know Loud Luxury? Are you familiar with Loud Luxury's work? No? It's a
No.
DJ, apparently.
Cool.
It's a
Not
musical
familiar with him.
duo is what I saw.
All right. Seems
That
like
doesn't feel
something
like-
I would be more interested in than Alex.
Oh, God, yeah. He said it, and I'm like, yeah, I'm so out on this one.
That is definitely one of those that I would listen to, and Alex would say, you're a moron. All right.
No, or just a hippie, but that's fine. Either
Let's
way.
go back out to the hotline to hear from Chris. Chris is going to be going up against Jordan Kyrou today. Chris, how you doing, my man?
Doing well, guys. Doing well.
All right, Chris. First of all, what do you call it? Budweiser, Bud Heavy, Bud Diesel, just Bud?
Never heard of Diesel. I go Bud Heavy.
That's what I'm talking about,
Sorry, Chris. You're 5 points now behind Kyrou, so you better have a really good performance for that one.
All right, Chris.
Not
Do you
how the game works.
It's my game, Chris.
Technically. All right,
right.
Chris, let's get into this. Your category today, I guess I should ask this first since we screwed up on the last one. Do you understand the rules of the game, my friend?
I do. Please make sure to clarify your question.
Get him, Chris. You got 2 more points in your favor, but you're still down by 3.
All right, Chris, your category today, Olympic sports or events. Name as many different Olympic sports or events as you can name in 15 seconds. On your mark, get set, go.
Javelin, discus, high jump, track and field, hurdles, hockey, soccer, baseball, ping pong, archery, skiing, snowboarding, bobsledding.
I had a man that knows his Olympic sports.
I had him at 12.
I had him at 12 as well. Didn't get the last one in
But
Buffalo Horn.
sorry, Chris, you did lose 2 points because of your butt heavy comment, so you're only at 10.
Make sure
Sorry
you
about
write
that.
down.
Sorry about that, Chris. Sorry.
All right, Chris, let's see
Should have called it right.
how Jordan Kyrou does with his Olympic events.
100 meter, 200 meter, 400 meter. 100 meter hurdle, 200 meter hurdle, 400 meter.
Stop laughing.
Hockey, basketball, gymnastics, track and field, breakdancing.
I had him at 11.
I got him at 11 as well.
All right. Dang, Chris, if you just would have said Budweiser, man. Be +1.
I've got 11, so that is a +1 for Chris. John, unfortunately, has been eliminated, but we do have Chris now as the leader in the clubhouse. Let's go to Mark, who is our final contestant today, going up against Jordan Kyrou. Mark, how you doing today, man? You think you're going to be able to beat Jordan Kyrou?
What's up, boys? Well, we'll give it a good try.
All right, Mark, I like it. I like the confidence.
By the way, we've got a clarification on the last one first. Baseball, technically an Olympic sport?
Yes, it was in the last
It is,
Olympics.
right?
Yeah, it was in the last
Just making sure.
Olympics.
We had one from the 314 that said baseball, not Olympic event. We had a.
Okay.
They were challenging it.
Calm
I wanted
down.
to come to you guys as the judges, make sure we were in the same place.
Speaking of challenge, Mark, you know the rules here. Give us an answer. Budweiser or Bud Heavy?
Or Bud Diesel.
I always order a butt wiper.
Budweiser.
Butt wiper is what I say.
Bud Wiper? Like a butt wiper?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, butt scratcher. All right, well, Mark, I don't know how to give you points on this, so
Yeah.
good luck,
feel
I
like
guess.
it's just
I can pretend it never happened.
Do you know what's smart play by Mark, though? Because I didn't deduct any points, so.
or add any.
You're confident in himself.
All right, Mark, your category today. Types of sandwiches. Types of sandwiches. So if you go to a sandwich shop, what would you order? Types of sandwiches. On your mark, get set, go.
Dagwood, hoagie, submarine, tuna fish, grilled cheese, armpit, turkey salami, club.
Did you say armpit?
It's a grade school thing. In our neighborhood, the gal would put the bread under her arm and made the sandwich and put the top back on.
I don't know if
I
I'm
think
counting
I'm
now.
going to deduct that one, but I'll give you a 2 because you got turkey and salami. So I had him at 7. I'm not
That's
going to
what I
count
had
the
him at
armpit
7.
because
Yeah,
this lunch lady was sticking bread under her arm.
Mark, have you talked to anybody professionally about that?
That's like in Billy Madison where she's like, have some more sloppy joes.
It was the greatest sandwich, I tell you.
Well, obviously. Did you find hair in it at some point, Mark?
No, don't answer that.
It's made with love.
Mark, you're going up against...
Chicken.
What did we do? What did we solve on with Bud Wiper over here? 7?
We're going to
That's
Kyrou.
what I got. I'm at 7.
Okay,
You get
as well.
7.
There's a lot going on over here. All right, let's hear if Jordan Kyrou likes his sandwiches.
Ham and cheese, BLT, turkey, roast beef, chicken salad, tuna.
Didn't say armpit, so I had him at 6, so he's a +1. So do we have a tie?
Yeah, both at +1.
All right, we're going to have a tie-off.
It's called a tiebreaker or a
tie
shootout or whatever you want to call it.
All right, Alex,
Brandon?
get a category ready.
Okay.
We're going to have Chris and Mark going head-to-head in
Okay.
a category.
Okay.
We'll see who ends up winning this one. Let's go back out to Chris.
Thanks for putting me on the spot.
Chris,
It's fine.
you're back on. Well, I'm hosting right now. So
So they're going up against each other, right? They're not going up against me?
that is correct.
Okay, good.
It'll
Okay.
be Chris going head-to-head against Mark. And Chris, I don't know what Mark's about to say. So I wish you the best of luck, my friend.
Just say armpit.
Chris, you're still down 2 points, unless you want to change your answer on the Budweiser, but it's fine.
All right, Alex, what is our category today for the tiebreaker?
Name as many superheroes as you can in 15 seconds.
All right, superheroes is your category. On your mark, get set, go.
Black Panther, Thor, Batman, Spider-Man, Incredible Hulk, Wolverine, Magneto. Like,
Chris.
I blanked out.
I blanked.
Chris was doing so well.
I lost count because we were talking, so you guys
I
are
had
the
him at
numbers.
7.
I had him at 7 as well. All
Okay.
right, Chris, it was a good performance up until the final 5 seconds, and then you blacked out, and I don't know what happened.
Drank too much Bud
I don't
Heavies.
either. I'm thirsty now. I'm thirsty.
Let's go back to Mark.
All right.
Alex has another category ready to go for you, Mark. You are going head-to-head against Chris, and you need to beat 7. You need to beat 7 in order to win this thing. You ready to go, Mark?
Yes, sir.
All right, Alex, what is Mark's category today?
Mark, name as many sports movies as you can in 15 seconds.
All right, sports movies is your category, Mark. On your mark, get set, go.
Happy Gilmore, Tin Cup, The Natural, Miracle. Fever Pitch.
Mark, were you trying to think of more hockey films and you couldn't think of any?
I was. I was trying to go through one category.
Mighty Ducks 1, 2, and 3. It's all right, Mark.
I had him at 5.
Mark, I
him
still
at
love
5
you and
as
your
well.
Bud Wiper and your armpit, so I hope you have a great lunch later on today.
Mark, thanks so much for calling in, man. You made
Got
my
it, guys. Thanks.
You got
Thanks,
it. That's
Mark.
Mark. Appreciate him being a part of the segment.
Chris, I don't like it, but you got the victory
Damn.
with your Bud Heavy, man. I don't like
Yeah.
it.
Go celebrate with a Bud Heavy, maybe a Busch Latte, and you'll be going to see the Blues versus the Red Wings coming up on April 1st, my friend.
Badass.
Love it. All right, Chris. Appreciate
Said
it.
bad, right?
He said badass.
Okay, I was going to say, you didn't use another 3-letter word before, right? Whoa, Chris.
He's good. Chris, we'll get your information via the text line. We'll get all of that taken care of so that way you get your Jordan Kyrou signed puck and tickets to see the Blues versus the Red Wings. That was an eventful edition of Can You Beat the Blues?
Might have been my favorite one
I'm
yet.
still trying to figure out if Mark was abused when he was a child with that armpit sandwich. Was somebody giving him a sandwich where the lunch lady put the bread under her armpit?
I'm not gonna lie. I just am glad that he admitted like where he came up with
made
that,
it
rather
up.
than like, oh, I got that at Subway. I'm like, no, you didn't.
Yeah, like the Dagwood, I'm like, okay, I get it. Like some of the names you say, like, yes, I've seen those
Yeah.
sandwiches before. But when he said armpit, I'm like, what
I was like,
restaurant is
there's
calling
gotta
their
be-
sandwich?
I thought I was gonna have to go explore a new sandwich shop later today.
No.
There's some people
What?
that are
If it was named Armpit, I
mean-
had to go figure out what that was.
I mean, you could explore it yourself. Just when you go home, you make a sandwich, you put the sandwich
well,
under
yeah,
your
well,
arm.
now that
and
I
then,
know what it is.
Yeah. There's a couple people that are very upset on the text line because Magneto is not a superhero. He's a
He
villain.
won by 2. It doesn't matter. He's Alex. That's T-Bone. I'm BK. Coming up next, we continue our countdown of the 20 most important Cardinals for the 2025 season with number 2 on our list. We'll tell you who that is next here on 101 ESPN. Alex, it's a good week for sports betting right now here in St. Louis because you've got the NCAA tournament coming back. We've got the second weekend of that. We've got Major League Baseball opening day. I've got the Cardinals on the money line for opening day, -106 and the over 7.5. I'm going to parlay that together against the Twins. And if you want to, you could bet on some hockey as well. You've got the futures that are available to you. Where are you doing this? Of course, you're doing it over on the Circa Sports app in the state of Illinois. The reason why is because they are going to give you the best odds possible. They recommend shop around, check out FanDuel, check out DraftKings. They believe they're going to give you the best chance to win the most money possible with Circa Sports in Illinois.
I nearly got that 10-leg parlay on Circa Sports this past weekend, so why not throw another one together on this weekend? And I'm going to be doing all of it at Circa Sports Illinois. Those big market bets, those large Ferrario parlays I love to put together, they're bringing in the most money possible because Circa is keeping as little money as possible. Plus, if you ever have issues, you're dealing with an actual person, not a robot with the Circa customer service. It's the app you need for all your sports betting needs. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues took care of business last night, beating the Montreal Canadiens, and they will be back in action tomorrow when they visit the Nashville Predators. Well, pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario, then puck drop at 7 o'clock with the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber. And tomorrow we will be at opening day as the Cardinals take on the Minnesota Twins, as the game will start at 3:15. Sonny Gray will be on the mound for St. Louis. Pablo Lopez gets the start for Minnesota. The Sports Center is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at Londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. We continue our countdown of the 20 most important Cardinals for the 2025 season with number 2 on our list. It'll come to a crescendo tomorrow with number 1. Number 2, though, is Ivan Herrera. I had him at number 4 on my list. T-Bone had him at number 3. Alex had him at number 4. If you're wondering, how did he end up at number 2? It's very simple. We ended up having a big split on many of the other guys. All of us agreed Ivan Herrera is super important to the 2025 Cardinals. Alex, I still don't know if the Cardinals are going to believe in his defense behind the plate. I don't know what his long-term position is going to be for the St. Louis Cardinals. But what I do know is this. He has shown more with the bat than really any other young Cardinals player that is currently on the roster. Last year, this was a guy that I think it gets underrated, and I will say it as many times as I possibly can up until the start of this season. The dude hit 300 last year with an OPS right around 800. That's incredibly rare for any young player, but certainly a young guy that plays a position as demanding as catcher. So going into this season, Alex, what do you view as his importance for this Cardinals team and beyond?
I find his importance to be one of the potential pillars of this team moving forward. And when you say the concern is probably still defense by this Cardinals team, I have 2 words. Who cares? Because it doesn't matter about his defense. His long-term future is not at the catcher position. It might be at first base. It might be a permanent DH. But what I do know is what Keith Law told us. This guy has the potential to be an impact bat in the middle of your lineup, a potential all-star that is going to hit for power. Not home run power, but doubles power. And with the speed future of this Cardinals organization with guys like Victor Scott and Mason Wynn and J.J. Weatherholt, you're going to have a lot of opportunities to score a lot of runs. And this, to me, is where Ivan Herrera can potentially come through. So when I was going through this list, again, I had the guy that we will talk about tomorrow and Nolan Gorman higher up. But I looked at this as Ivan Herrera has the potential to be one of the faces of this Cardinals team moving forward, and it's strictly because of his bat.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am. Like, I look at him, and I think he can be the Cardinals' second-best hitter on their roster this season. I mean, he's got that kind of potential. And by the way, if he's the second-best hitter on this Cardinals team, he also could be one of the best, if not the best, hitting catchers in baseball. I mean, you look at his profile, man. He hit 300 last year, got on base at a really high clip at 372, and the slug was 428, and I think there's more slug in his bat. Now, I don't think it's in home run power potentially. It's probably more of doubles, but he's got an unbelievable ceiling when you look at his bat. He can play at the big leagues. The problem for him is just figuring out what his position is going to be, because I don't know if he's worked on his defensive issues, and I do think that will become problematic for him as the season goes along. But he's the kind of guy that you almost have to find a way to get into your lineup because of how well his bat plays at the big leagues.
Tell me if you guys think this is crazy, because we're not even quite to the start of the 2025 season. But if I was projecting forward, kind of what the Cardinals lineup will be when they're trying to contend again, it would look something like this. Nootbaar leading off in left field, and then you've got Herrera batting second, and this is why I think he's so important, because I think he's capable of doing that. Weatherholt's batting third, Contreras batting cleanup, and then Burleson, Walker, Donovan, Wynn, and Scott. That's kind of the way that I see them projecting this lineup as we move forward here. The reason why Herrera to me is so important is because I'm not sure who else right-handed has the ability to be that number 2 hole hitter that they're looking for. I think you hope maybe it's still in there for Jordan Walker, but at this point in time, man, I'm just hoping he's above average. Just be an above league average hitter, and I feel pretty good about that. Ivan Herrera is a guy that I think could be a consistent 800 OPS type of a player, or beyond that. So if you could get that out of him, he's a 30 double, 20 home run player, and then you get Weatherholt, who could be something similar to that, but from the left side. Newt, Herrera, Weatherholt, Burleson up there as well. It's a pretty good 1 through 5 if you got Contreras hitting the way that it sounds like he's likely to this year, playing at first base.
Yeah, I mean, that is probably how they want to draw it up, because they are missing that other right-handed bat. I think when you look at a lineup for the Cardinals and the way that they are built, they need a lefty to kind of sandwich in the middle. And you mentioned Weatherholt is probably being that guy. Sure. And then you just need that one other right-handed bat. And I'm kind of with you right now. My hope is just Walker's league average this year, and then hopefully the following season is the one where you really see him take that step forward. But yeah, Herrera's the guy that can be in that spot. And since he doesn't hit home run power, and maybe he will this year, we'll see, he probably profiles better as that 2-hole spot, because he's going to be a guy that hits for doubles, which can score runners that are on base, and he's going to get on base at a decent clip. I told you this yesterday, BK, and it kind of ends up becoming what his line was last season. I think he can put together Molina-esque offensive seasons. He's never going to be Molina behind the plate.
You're talking about the second half of Molina's career offensive seasons, not like 2005 to 2010.
Not when he was bad offensively, or really the guy that was hitting for that really high average. Like, you look at Yachty, for example, and you look at his 2014 season, 282 average, 333 on base, 386 slugs. I think he's going to have a higher slug. I think he's going to be more of like 427, which is what Molina was in 2016. That ends up being about an 800 OPS guy. Yep. And I think that's what he's going to be. I think he's got that capability offensively.
Yeah, I think it's in there. Somebody on the text line said, guys, do you have any concerns over Ivan Herrera's bat? It feels like you're all in on Herrera after just like 2/3 of a season. I really don't. That may be me getting overly excited. I've been prone to do that with guys before in the past, but there's nothing about the profiles so far that would indicate this is a concerning trend. He hits the ball really hard. He hits it where it needs to go, which is on a line, not necessarily just in the air, but on a line. And he is somebody that does not strike out at a particularly high rate. So he walks. He doesn't strike out a ton. He hits the ball on a line, and when he does, he hits it really hard. The results were mostly there last year. I expect them to be mostly there this year. Could he go through slumps? Of course. He's a young player. You should expect stuff like that. I don't know that he's going to be a huge home run hitter. I guess if you have a quote-unquote concern, maybe that would be it. But for me, yeah, I've got very few concerns about him. I think he's going to be an all-around hitter for this team.
I have more concerns about Mason Wynn's bat in the second season than I do Ivan Herrera in his second full season.
I agree.
Yeah, and that to me tells you the two differing profiles. I think Ivan Herrera is going to make contact. He's not going to strike out a whole lot. And when he makes contact, you're talking about doubles. That, to me, does not scream what Mason Wynn is. So, I mean, that just goes to show you in our list that we put together, it's why Ivan Herrera was so highly touted by me.
All right, that is number 2 on our list of the 20 most important Cardinals for the 2025 season. We will get to number 1 tomorrow as we are broadcasting live from Ballpark Village at opening day for the Cardinals this year. TMA is going to be there in the morning. We will be there from 11 to 2. Our opening day broadcast is presented by General Pest Services, by Rawlings, and by Budweiser. Not just Budweiser, but Heavy. I'll probably have a Bud Heavy out there tomorrow.
I'm not going to refer to either of you.
Did you look at me to... Well, I'm not the one who says Bud Heavy.
I was looking at you to see if you were going to respond. I'm not responding to him.
No.
Keep saying that. He will be shunned.
You're hoping me to fill that void because you didn't hear what he said.
Wow, for a
that
minute,
was exactly what happened. He wasn't listening. He was texting. That's Alex East T-Bone on BK. Coming up next, the Rewind here on 101 ESPN.
T-Bone here to tell you about DraftKings Pick 6. Let me ask you this. Aren't you ready to win some real money this March? Look, all you need to focus on are player stats to rack up big cash prizes with my friends at DraftKings Pick 6. It's super easy. All you got to do is select more or less on player stats, and Pick 6 is available in most states, including here in Missouri. Look, tomorrow you got the Sweet 16 back in action. Look, some of the stars are out playing, and in the Sweet 16, you need your stars to show up. So I'm going Cooper Flagg more than 21.5 points, Sears more than 20.5 for Alabama, and JT Toppin more than 19.5 for Texas Tech. $10 on that can win you 50 plus. So turn your college basketball knowledge into cash today. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use my code 101WXOS. That's code 101WXOS for new customers to play $5, get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 18 plus, and age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Void where prohibited. One per new customer. Bonus award is non-drawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. If you guys missed anything from today's show, be sure to check out the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app that is sponsored by
Shaver Door Company.
That 101 ESPN app is free to download, super easy to use, and it is also sponsored by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Alex, earlier today, we were able to catch up with Daniel Descalso. I think that conversation is well worth your time. If you did not hear it earlier, the Cardinals bench coach joined us to discuss what he saw from Victor Scott that led to them breaking camp with him on the Major League roster and how they'll go about balancing the here and now, trying to win for today while also having in mind the runway for these younger players and what they are going to be in the future. We also talked to Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues, talked to him about what we saw from the Blues last night. And that is where I would like to end today's show, Alex, is with the Blues who, I mean, they looked awesome against one of the hottest teams in the NHL. They gave Montreal zero ability to get any kind of high danger chances. You mentioned in the first period, they had like a 15-second offensive cycle, and that was it.
Yeah, that was it.
The Blues, once again, just looked like the better team from start to finish.
Yeah, I mean, this is what they've done, and what's most impressive about what they did against Montreal was they were coming off of two games that the players said, look, these were not our best games. We were bad in these games, and they still beat their opponents 8-2 in 2 games. And then they come out with 1 day of rest. And they also did a morning skate that morning. And Jim Montgomery said last night on postgame, like, I saw them skate for 30 minutes, and I knew they were going to win this game tonight. This team just knows what it takes to win hockey games right now, and it does not matter who the opponent is. Since the Four Nations break, Robert Thomas has been the best player in the National Hockey League, which, by the way, Nick Suzuki, who they went up against last night, he's been the third best player in the National Hockey League. And that guy did not have the success that they were having. So the Blues not only are an offensive juggernaut right now, but they are a stingy team, and you're about to get a real good idea of who they are because their schedule goes from being what people were labeling a cupcake to a little bit more difficult.
Blues 13-2-2 since the break, averaging 4 goals, giving up 2 goals per game. Those are both top 3 in the NHL. One of the best stretches of hockey that we've seen from the St. Louis Blues, and as long as I can remember. It continues tomorrow night. Alex will have pregame coverage for that one. We'll break it all down for you here on BK and Ferrario. We'll be broadcasting live from Ballpark Village tomorrow, so if you're out there, come on by, say hello to us. We're expecting to have Matt Morris tomorrow for opening day. We'll also be talking with Bill DeWitt III. John Mozeliak going to be on with TMA. We will talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane's coming up next year on 101 ESPN.